Council for February 11th to order. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Councillor Kaiser. Present. Councillor Anderson.
Likewise.
Councillor Nanke.
Here.
Councillor Leung.
Here.
Councillor Ossick.
Here.
Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Cook.
Here.
Councillor Lewis.
Here.
And Mayor Bennett.
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? We're going to lead off with kind of an explanation of how this meeting will work. As you can see, we have a little larger than our usual number of attendees, so we want to get this under control and make sure everybody gets a chance to testify who wants to.
Thank you. Really appreciate the turnout this evening and for your patience as we stay under our fire code. We are at maximum in this room for the fire marshal at 184. We have close to 100 people at the library. That is the overflow viewing area in the Salem Public Library. Many of our residents wish to share their views with council. As a courtesy, we are asking that if you are here to provide public comment, that after you have provided your public comment, that you please leave to make room for those.
Yes. Thank you for participating.
So so other residents can come and testify. We are monitoring, tracking who has signed up for public comment, who is currently in the Anderson room, and again, we cannot allow them in this room. We are at our fire limit. So I am pleading for your cooperation. You can follow along when you do leave. You can follow along on Facebook. We're live streaming the meeting. It's on CCTV, YouTube, or you can have a seat at the Anderson room in the library. And we're really asking for people's cooperation to keep us in compliance with the fire marshal and provide everyone an opportunity that has signed up to provide their public comment to City Council.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councillor Hoy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we reorder the agenda as follows. Item number 3, immediately after item 1.4. Move item 4.B, annexation of territory located at 4945 Delton Lane Northeast, to immediately after item 1.2. Move item 5.A, council decision regarding the Salem River Crossing, to immediately after item 2, public comment. And of note, we have pulled item 4.A and postponed it to the February 25th agenda.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Okay, any comments from council or city manager? All righty, we'll move on then. So what are we pulling up first then? That all went by me pretty quickly. I'm doing 4A.
Consent calendar.
Consent calendar. Okay, I have a motion from you on that then.
I move adoption of the consent calendar with the following pull, item 3.3C by Councilor Lewis.
Second.
All those in favor, day discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes. Okay. What next? We'll do the annexation?
Yes.
Okay.
The City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider the annexation of territory located at 4945 Delton Lane Northeast. The criteria applicable to the decision is SRC 260.060C Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties of the City Council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will be conducted with staff presentation first, followed by testimony from the following. The applicant is limited to 10 minutes. Applicable neighborhood association is limited to 5 minutes, and other interested parties are limited to 3 minutes. The applicant may have up to 7 minutes rebuttal testimony limited to issues raised during public testimony. A yellow light will appear at the podium when 1 minute remains, and a red light will appear when your time has expired. Please conclude your testimony when the red light appears.
Okay, and we're going to hear from Ms. Cole. I wanted to let you know the reason we're doing this ahead of the bridge issue is because there's a time limit in law requiring us to get this one through tonight. So if you'd go ahead, Ms. Cole.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Pamela Cole, planner with Community Development Department. Tonight I'm presenting the staff report for annexation case C-728 for 4945 Delton Lane Northeast. I'd like to enter the staff report, attachments, and presentation into the official record. The territory is contiguous to the city limits on the west side. The territory is approximately 0.277 acres and includes 0.037 acres of right-of-way of Hoffman Road Northeast. The territory is one parcel, and because the property is contiguous to city limits, annexation is required to obtain city services for a future dwelling. The territory is designated single-family residential in the comprehensive plan map. Adjacent properties are designated single-family residential, and the properties across from Hoffman are designated developing residential. Abutting the property on the west, there's city property zoned RA, residential agriculture, and other nearby properties are either RS, single-family residential, or RA in the city. And the subject properties and adjacent properties in Marion County are zoned UD, urban development. That's consistent with the single-family comprehensive plan designation, so the territory will automatically be zoned single-family residential if it's annexed. This particular annexation would create an enclave because when the city boundary is adjusted, if this annexation is passed, then the boundary will completely surround an area that includes 16 tax lots, and I'll show you that on the next slide. Staff provided notice of this public hearing to those owners, and I've answered questions for one of those owners. State law allows the city to initiate annexation of an enclave if the street right-of-way makes up less than 25% of the boundary of the enclave. We calculated this one to be at 21.7%. So the city could initiate annexation in the future and refer it to the voters. If the annexation would be approved by voters, the properties in residential use within the enclave would be subject to a 3-year delay of the annexation unless they're sold or transferred. So this shows you that most of the territory around the annexation territory is also residential. The annexation territory in purple is quite small and includes that small segment on Hoffman Road. And then this area is the enclave that could be created by the potential annexation. Under Senate Bill 1573, adopted in 2016, the proposed annexation may not be referred to the voters because all of the owners signed the petition. The territory is in the urban growth boundary, it's subject to the comprehensive plan, and it's contiguous to the city limits. Although it may not be referred to the voters, council does retain the authority on whether to annex the territory. Staff found that the proposed annexation met the criteria. Therefore, we recommend that council find that the petitioners signed a valid triple majority petition, determine that the annexation satisfies the criteria, adopt Order 2019-01 A and X, apply City of Salem single-family residential zoning, and withdraw the territory from Marion County Fire District Number 1 and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. That concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you very much. Did the applicant want to testify? Okay. Neighborhood Association? Okay, no one has signed up to testify on this. Any questions for staff? Councilor Hoy, you want to move this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council find that the petitioners have signed a valid triple majority petition for annexation of the territory in conformance with the Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 222. Determine that the petition satisfies the criteria of Salem Revised Code 260.060C and adopt order number 2019-01-ANX. Apply the City of Salem RS Residential Agricultural Zone to the territory from Marion County UD Urban Development, and withdraw the territory from Marion County Fire District Number 1 and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District.
Second.
Second by Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Just very quickly, the public comment period, the public is allowed 3 minutes, which is longer than it sounds. And that's not from our end. That really will feel like quite a bit of time. If you can say it in 2 minutes or 1 minute, that's great. We've got a lot of folks signed up. There are 184 folks in this room and 105 in the Anderson room, all waiting to testify. So as the manager mentioned, when you're done testifying, you could leave. The person in the other room can come in here to testify. Right now, count's been done. 100 favor the bridge, 5 oppose the bridge over in the Anderson room, if that helps you decide what you want to do with your movements. So why don't we get started? We'll have the mayor of Dallas speak first. It's a professional courtesy.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Brian Dalton, 1650 Southwest Bridlewood Drive in Dallas. I'm the mayor of the second largest Dallas in the world. Does applause
We're just taking
count
Brian's
against my
time here.
Okay,
He's got
laughter
a
and
couple
applause.
more in here. It's pretty good.
Thank you. I'm also the president of the Oregon Mayors Association and on the local COG board. My great-great-grandfather, Alexander Spong, moved to Salem in 1851, 168 years ago, to start a ferry service on the Willamette. It is ironic that I'm here tonight to support the third bridge, given that the construction of Salem's first bridge in 1886 put my family out of business. I'm one of the 15 regional mayors who sent you all the recent letter endorsing the project. Almost all the cities in the region signed the letter, from Scotts Mills on up to McMinnville and Kaiser, including every one of the cities in Polk County. We're all very serious about this project being of regional magnitude. This decade, Dallas has been growing faster in population percentage than Salem, Corvallis, McMinnville, and Eugene, among others. With Dallas being a great place to live, I'm the mayor after all, this rapid growth is projected to continue for the next 50 years, with us growing half again faster than Salem. Highway 22 to Salem and on to the interstate is the lifeline for our industry, commerce, air travel, and access to urban Oregon. With our new $300 million paper manufacturing plant likely coming to Dallas this summer, we will be sending our products out to the entire Pacific Northwest and Northern California. This is just the first cog in the revival of our industry, which depends on the free flow of our goods. In human terms, please reflect on our ambulances getting caught up in traffic jams on the bridges getting from and to Dallas. Certainly they can get to Salem Hospital by dodging through traffic jams with lights and sirens, but often suffer great delays getting back home, leaving our community of 16,000 uncovered while they're gone. Theodore Roosevelt, no shrinking violet, said, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is to do the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is to do nothing. In voting, please think regionally. Thanks for your time. I'm occupying some really choice seats right here, which I will abandon in just a moment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Dalton. I'm going to I'm going to ask that that's the last time we have applause, whoops, howls, whistles, or anything. It really slows the whole process down. We understand there's a lot of motion around this, but it'll really help us move along, and it'll get Sam Brentano up here quicker, and Colm Willis behind him.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Sam Brentano. I live at 605 West Main, and sublimity, just as an aside, I think that's the largest sublimity in the world. I don't know that. So I presented this several times to you and wondered whether I should even try again, but I just wanted to bring home a few more points. We've also presented from the county different letters all in support. I believe the bridge is necessary to provide redundancy and resilience in case of incident, and that could be an accident, it could be a mechanical failure, structural failure of the bridges, earthquake. You heard me say, and I really believe this, the alternative, if something happens to the bridges here, is Newburgh or Albany, and I don't know that you can count on them if there's been something that caused a problem here. The mayor just mentioned regional economic vitality. We know there's going to be population growth, and we need more capacity. And as I said before, it's a generational opportunity. It could be decades, and I'm not just making that up before we ever reach this point again. Now, I watched the work session, and perhaps it's not relevant to this conversation, but just had to comment on it. We did an exercise. I was on the policy committee. We did an exercise that assumed there'd be no federal state money, so how would you pay for this thing? And the opponents of this have used that all the time, say there'll be no other help. Well, there will be. And that's what the county and Polk County and the others will be doing, is getting those. And we've gotten it before. We've gotten it for the Woodburn interchange, the interchange in Staten, and Newburgh-Dundee bypass. And if that money doesn't come, then even I would say, no, you don't build it. But don't stop the opportunity to even get to that point. I heard some criticism about what if our partners renege again, and I resented that a whole bunch because it seemed to be talking about Marion County. I'll tell you, Marion County has never reneged on anything, and if we say we'll be there for you, we will be, in terms of our people paying tolls, finding the money, helping every way we can. And one other little thing, Councilor Anderson keeps bringing up, he brought it up in State Street, I let it go, but he brought it up again in the work session. It kind of goes like this, that so you save 30 seconds if you don't do this, or you save a minute. Is that worth hundreds of millions of dollars? But he doesn't do the whole math exercise. It's $30 or 30 minutes or 30 seconds or a minute times 100, then 1,000, and when you back up the town, then it's thousands and thousands. And that's what it means. When this, if Mission Street closes, there's other ways around. Commercial Street, other ways. The freeway. But when those bridges are down, nothing moves in this community or through it. So my big ask, and don't be too offended, but as elected officials, we should be trying to make the lives of the people we represent better, not using our positions to impose a particular worldview. So do your job and keep the bridge concept moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, I'm going to ask you again not to clap. I really am. Yeah, that's a good idea. You can do your thumbs up. Commissioner, go ahead.
Mayor, members of this council, my name is Colm Willis, and I'm from Staten. And I'm here to ask you to support the further development of the third bridge. It is vital for the economic development of Marion County. But I want to tell you a story. 7 years ago, my wife and I were newlyweds, and we had a newborn daughter, and we lived in an apartment by Wallace Marine Park, and I worked in Kaiser. And it took me about a half hour every day to go the few miles from my apartment near Wallace Marine Park to Kaiser. And when you have a young family and you're early in your career, you're working long hours, you don't have a lot of money, and that time with your family is precious. And traffic's only gotten worse since then, and I'm sure the time's only gotten longer since then. And so I'm here to just ask you to support the young families in our community to help make their lives a little bit easier so they can be spending time at home with people they love, not sitting in traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Josh Kay. Followed by Jennifer Martin. Go ahead,
Mr.
Josh.
Mayor, councilors, thank you for your time this night. I live in Ward 3. I live in the Morningside Neighborhood Association. I serve on their board and their land use committee. My family's lived here in Salem since the 1800s. We founded the Thomas K. Woolen Mill. We own and operate the Salem Golf Club. Salem is near and dear to my heart and the family that I want to raise here in this community. So I have the privilege of being the first non-elected official constituent to speak tonight, so I feel like I really need to set the stage. You, councilors, we, Salem community, we have an opportunity tonight to make a decision. The Salem River Crossing, this third bridge, something we've been talking about vigorously, not just over the last year, but for the past 60 years, okay? It's been the topic of great debate, especially here tonight and in the last year, because tonight we decide if it dies or if we continue on with the process. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but this is serious and has major implications for the future, because we have spent time, money, resources to get to this point. So, in short, we either continue this process or we let it die. And so, now, the way in which we arrived here, it's been long, it's been academic, millions of dollars, and this is where I'm supposed to tell you on why we need the bridge, but I'm not going to do that because that's going to be for the next few hours of testimony. There's going to be a lot of this. We're going to be beating a dead horse, and we've been doing that. We need a bridge. But full disclosure is I'm not a traffic engineer. The traffic engineer is sitting here right next to me. And no offense, but neither are you that are making this decision. And I know that you have input from staff and all these studies, and you need to abide by that. So, to be frank, I know that some of you counselors have run your election on no third bridge, and you're in a tough spot because you need to fulfill that commitment. That would be awkward. But the reality is even though you have an opportunity to kill this tonight, you don't have to do it. You can continue on this process because it's the right thing to do. What is the right thing to do is to continue on. Now, what is the wrong thing to do is how we've gotten here. It's been disingenuous, letting this die on the vine, and the way that it's gone about it. And everyone here knows in this room what I'm talking about. Remarkably disingenuous. And it's funny because you guys are under a microscope right now, like you've never been under here before. This bridge has rallied up our community. We did the school bond, we did the library bond, we did the police facility. We're up here lined up saying, let's go, let's figure it out. But continue the process. Let us figure out how we get there. Don't kill it tonight. Continue this process. We're lining up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Josh. Jennifer Martin. You'll be followed by Jim Vandridge.
Good evening, esteemed council members. I'm Jennifer Martin. I live in Ward 7 at 2352 Toscana Avenue South. I'm also a small business owner, and my business is located in Ward 2 at 340 Vista Avenue Southeast. I would like to focus my comments tonight in two distinct areas. First, many of you have iterated a lack of support for a third bridge because you feel that we as a community need to increase our reliance on alternative modes of transportation in an effort to improve livability, whatever that specifically means to you in your constituency. May I offer this perspective? I feel that one of the best ways we can improve livability is to reduce the traffic through our downtown that is not going to downtown, but is on its way somewhere else and driving through downtown. If we reduce that traffic flow by giving it another option, we enhance the safety for pedestrians and bicycle riders who now feel it is unsafe due to how much traffic has to travel through the core. We also may be able to proceed with some of our downtown streetscape initiatives and other traffic calming agendas because we won't have as much traffic trying to move through the area. Secondly, and I feel this will continue to be a common theme throughout the evening, is that tonight you're not being asked about whether or not you support a third bridge. You are not being asked to build a bridge, fund a bridge, or even decide if our community should have a bridge. What you are being asked to do is to ensure we have a complete set of information on which to base future decisions about not only our community, but all of the surrounding communities and those who rely on a reliable connection across the Willamette River. Tonight, we have an obligation as a community to instruct staff to move forward with answering the three questions. It is the only responsible decision to make, because how can we ever make a decision on whether or not to proceed without a complete set of information? And while you may not support a third bridge with the information you have today, or you made a campaign promise to not support a third bridge, that is not what is being asked of you. So please don't jump ahead. You're being asked to supply information, period. How silly would we look if we made a decision and drew a conclusion without being properly and completely informed? And how silly will we look if we say no to this request?
Thank you, Jennifer. Tim Vandridge. There's Tim. Followed by Chad Elliott.
Mr. Mayor and City Councilors, my name is Tim Fondrick. I own and operate a business at 1436 Commercial Street Northeast in Ward 1, and I've lived on Wallace Road in West Salem for over 40 years. I'm here tonight to transparently report the results of a survey collected at don'tkillthebridge.com, which I built and administered on behalf of Salem Bridge Solutions. I was not paid to build the website or administer the results. As I have testified on numerous occasions during this long process, I am an active supporter of the third bridge. You should have received a copy of my letter via email and both a list of the yes votes and a list of the no votes. First things first, this is not a scientific poll or survey. This was clearly an attempt to rally proponents of the third bridge and to give them an opportunity for their voice to be heard. However, there was no attempt to limit or not accept no responses. This website was available to anyone and was openly shared by both proponents and opponents of the third bridge. I don't have time to go into all the details and results, but here's the highlights. We collected a total of 2,021 responses during a period of January 23rd through yesterday at noon. The primary question was, should the Salem City Council continue to move forward with the Salem River Crossing third bridge? The responses were yes, 1,885 votes, 93.27%, no, 132, 6.53%, undecided 4, for again a total of 2,021 votes. Respondents were also asked, do you live in the Salem city limits? Yes, 1,424 for 70.46%, no, 583 for 28.85%, and 14 did not answer. I also broke down the results by the primary Salem area zip codes. As you can see, you should have this in front of you. We got responses from all zip codes, and the lowest yes percentage in Salem was 82.61%. Responses were limited to one submission per IP address, email address, and several other identification factors. All responses have been reported as submitted. No records have been deleted. For privacy purposes, the raw data, including full name, email, phone, street address, etc., has not been shared with any third party. My firm and I are the only ones who have access to the raw data. To summarize, 1,885 people, which is 93.27% of submissions, are urging you to move forward and not kill the bridge. My voice is one of them. Please, hear our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Chad Elliott, followed by Linda Alvis.
Good evening, councilors. My name's Chad Elliott. I live at 3482 El Dorado Loop South. I'm in Ward 7. I work in Ward 2, and I just recently moved out of Ward 2. So I have a young family. I grew up in Salem, actually in West Salem, and we moved back to town, and the traffic was a major issue for us, and moving forward, I think it's going to be a bigger issue. And my biggest fear is that, my kids are 7 and 4, and in 11 years, they'll be deciding what to do with their lives. And are they going to choose to live here, or are they going to choose to live somewhere else where business is wanted and where there's not traffic that impacts their life? So I have to make decisions pretty often where my parents live in West Salem still. And if my kids are over there and they want to have us over for dinner, I'm coming home from work and I have to decide, do I want to deal with this traffic or are we going to make other arrangements? So I'm missing out on some family activities that I shouldn't have to make those decisions. So I ask that you guys just help move this thing along. Let's not kill it, and let's keep this moving forward. And I agree with Josh Kay that this is a tough spot to be in. But again, you're not saying yes to the bridge. You're just not saying no and killing it. So I would ask you guys to take that into account. So, as I said, my parents live in West Salem. My wife works in West Salem, and my kids are in West Salem more often than not during the day. So, I ask, how are they going to get home if there's an earthquake or a major accident on the bridge or something like that? And that's something that you guys need to think about. I know some of the facts that were discussed at the work session. You guys were trying to find little nuggets of information to show that there was only a few minutes saved, from certain points in town. But I felt like the evidence was pretty clear with those time savings that the bridge is a no-brainer. So I'd ask that you support that, and let's just keep this thing moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Chad. Linda? Always? There you are.
I'm Linda Aloise, and I live in West Salem. We live off of Glen Creek, up by Meyer Elementary School. I have a proclamation here I'm going to read first, and it's from the governor. Geologists have determined that major earthquakes of magnitudes 8 or 9 have occurred many times in the past, and another could occur at any moment in the Pacific Northwest. Given our current lack of preparedness, such a quake could create the worst natural disaster in American history. As a society, we are increasingly recognizing this earthquake threat, but such recognition has not yet translated into rapid increase in our earthquake resilience. And much more can be done to increase resilience by individual families, community groups, business, government agencies, and operations of our lifeline. Greater recognitions of earthquake threat is the key motivating action by such individuals and groups. We haven't lived in West Salem but about two years. We lived over on this side on the Willamette River, and we really love West Salem. My first thought when we moved over there was, it's like a whole city all of its own over there, and it's so nice and it's so pretty and so clean, and it has everything we need except being able to get over the bridge. We no longer come over this way for dinner. We used to go out to dinner a lot when we were over here. We never come over here for dinner because by the time we're all through with dinner, we're going to be stuck for another hour because we're older and we eat dinner early. So don't say eat dinner later, we don't. We're going to be stuck in that traffic coming back up. So we no longer come over here for dinner. If I'm in the grocery store, I'm telling the cashier, hurry up and get those things grabbed. I've got to be at the bridge by 3 o'clock. My husband drives a big semi-truck, and he leaves the house at 1 o'clock in the mornings, and he drives all the way up into Washington and stuff, and he gets home. By the time he gets back to the bridge, he has spent an hour and a half waiting to get to the bridge, just waiting in that truck. He gets home between 6:30, 7 o'clock. If he could save that hour and a half waiting to get over that bridge, think if you were driving all that time all day long since 1 o'clock in the morning. I just ask that we really need another bridge. We don't need another walking bridge. You talk about cutting your transportation and things down. He works up and through Portland, and he can't do that. So many people have to have a car. And you talk about an earthquake. We just spent millions of dollars supporting the library. You have an earthquake of 8 or 9 magnitude, we're not going to be able to get over that bridge to come and go to the library because we're not going to have a bridge.
Thank you, Linda, very much. Rich Duncan, followed by Marty, Hyan, and Jeff. Hi.
I should just be quick and say, go bridge, and then I'll be done. Pass it on.
There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Rich Duncan. I live at 6292 McClay Road, Southeast. I own Rich Duncan Construction. I'm located at 2295 Rural Avenue in Salem. I've lived in Salem for over 50 years. Amazing. Raising 4 kids, 5 grandchildren, and I employ 35 people, all of which live, work, and depend on a safe, reliable transportation. Our family and company have a disaster preparedness plan, which we depend on a reliable river crossing An example is if an event happens to the bridge, our employees can go help rescue the kids or get them back and forth if we have a out-of-town employee. We have family, clients, suppliers that live both on both sides of the river. We know that the current bridge, they're at their maximum and would not survive a Cascadia event. We know that for a healthy Mid-Valley region downtown, we need to ease future traffic and congestion. Born and raised in Salem and owning a construction company for over 18 years, we have always been committed to the community. We have seen the ups and downs, but we feel our voices need to be heard. Over the last 13 years, working in the right direction towards the third bridge, the healthy downtown, and a prideful place to own a business and raise a family. Hear our voice, and personally hear my voice, move the bridge project forward. Honor the voices of our community, honor the hard work of our community, the state and federal partners, and the millions of taxpayer dollars that we've gotten to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Marty?
Good evening. My name is Marty Hyan. I live in Ward 5. So yeah, I do live in Northeast Salem, and I rarely go to West Salem. I avoid it because the downtown area is always so crowded and trying to get across the bridge. And I'm sure a lot of other people avoid it as well. And this is really bad for business on both sides of the river. Somebody will die at some point because they can't get to the hospital in time. We heard testimony before at one of the meetings I was at where somebody's mother almost did not make it because of the delays getting across the bridge. And of course, as a member of CERT, I also have to talk again about the Cascadia event, the big one. And anytime I do go to West Salem, I'm terrified that's when it's going to hit. I do not want to get stuck on the wrong side of the river. You won't be able to get across it, and that's going to cause harm to a lot of our community. Building another bridge is good for the economy, good for the safety of your neighbors, and good for the environment. How can you vote against Costco in favor of the South Salem neighbors and not vote to help the entire Salem community? Build the bridge.
Thank you, Jeff Hyan, and then followed by Ryan Bladell and Stu Stone. Excuse me.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Jeff Hyan. I live 3060 31st Avenue in Ward 5. My testimony will be somewhat brief. I started out here, 20 years ago as a neighborhood chair. Okay, I've been involved in a lot of things since then, more and more political as they go. And all of this that we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years comes down to tonight. We have this opportunity. If we choose to let it go, it'll be another 20, 30 years before it happens again. I fully believe that. Why would your partners from the federal and the county choose and the state choose to work with you if we just throw this away? It wouldn't make any sense. Another thing, the last meeting you guys had, the work session, a certain group of counselors here, I could see all of the questions, every one of them was directed to one thing: finding an excuse to justify not voting for this bridge. I watched it on TV. That's what I saw. That's what a lot of these people saw. It's really unfortunate. I would ask that you guys not be political obstructionists and listen to the will of the people here, okay? Lastly, for the audience, folks, local elections matter. Pay attention. Thank you.
Ryan Bladell, followed by Stu Stone, followed by Terry Geisinger.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Ryan Bladel, live at 1687 Gemma Street, Northwest. Also, I'm a small business owner based out of West Salem. I've lived in West Salem since I was, about 35 years now, since 1983. And it's interesting because I think back, and when I moved to West Salem, there was one bridge, and shortly thereafter, they built the second bridge. And as we sit here tonight on the verge of potentially killing all of the work and the money and the effort and time that has been put into this, I can't help but think, wow, what if they would have done that so many years ago and they wouldn't have built the second bridge? I think as obviously we're all here, or many of us are here, you know, just trying to say to you guys and encouraging, the time is now. I don't think anybody can disagree that there is a traffic problem, that there's congestion problems, and the Third River Crossing is the first step in trying to alleviate a lot of those. And again, I just would encourage you guys to not kill it tonight, to let the process continue to move forward and not waste all of the time and effort and millions of dollars that have been put in the previous 13 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Stu Stone, followed by Terry Geisinger, followed by Don Stover.
Good evening, people. My name is Terry Geisinger. I'm a registered structural engineer in Oregon and 14 other states here. I've lived in Salem since 1971. My home is in Kaiser, but I own businesses. I own property in West Salem, South Salem, Front Street, and other parts of Salem. I'm all for this bridge, and I don't want to see the opportunity lost. And I don't think very many people want to see that thing lost. And I ask you tonight to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geisinger. Stu Stone?
Yes, Mayor. Hi, Stu Stone, 3850 Eola Drive, Northwest. I was born in Salem in 1953. I've lived in West Salem since 1975. Like a lot of people in this room, I've invested money in West Salem for a home to live in, raise a family. I've also invested a lot of money in developing parts of West Salem. The Taco Bell McDonald's project there on Wallace Road with Les Schwab, the strip mall, the apartments behind it that I sold property to the Harrison family here in Salem to develop. Subdivisions up on Eola and Orchard Heights. First time I testified in this room about the bridge, my hair was blonde and I had a lot more of it. It was a long time ago. I sat on the Citizens Advisory Committee on the Wallace Road traffic mitigation plan. I don't know if you were here then. ODOT was involved. There was a lot of talk about a third bridge, how we're going to route it, where it's going to go, how we're going to get to the highway. We're supposed to have a 20-year supply of land to develop within our urban growth boundary. West Salem is one of the few areas we have left within our urban growth boundary where we actually have a 20-year supply of land. Our population is a little over 30,000 right now, maybe 35, and it's supposed to double. I can't imagine how we're going to get back and forth across that bridge if we're going to double the population of Salem, not to mention Dallas, McMinnville, the Coast Highway. God forbid if they build a bigger casino further out the highway. So based on the reality is I work out on Mission at 22nd at the Berkshire Hathaway real estate office, and I used to be able to get stopped just about at Commercial Street, and I'd fight through 3 or 4 traffic signals. Now I'm stopped back by the hospital, and I'm afraid in a couple of years it's going to be at the Ram, and then up on the ramp, and then Mission is already an absolute nightmare. It used to be clogged up at about 4:45. Now it's about 3:45. It's a longer time span for that commute. I urge you to, if there's a problem with the plan, let's fix the plan. As far as the funding, Portland has gotten us in a bad spot because $1.5 billion was spent there for their transportation and their transit. It's time for us to speak up as a capital city and get some of the money that we deserve to fix our infrastructure in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Stover, Zach Stone, Jim Griggs.
Hi there. Not a public speaker, but with that said, my name is Don Stover. I'm president of Local 146 with the Carpenters Union. I'm chairman of the Mid-Valley State Recognized Carpenters Apprenticeship. I'm a business representative for the Pacific Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters, and I cover Marion, Polk, Lynn Benton, and Lincoln County. And more importantly, since birth, I've lived in Salem, Oregon. Ridden my bike all over this city, and we need to build a third bridge. We really do. I'm just kind of shocked that we're even having to talk about it. It should be done. It's not going to get cheaper kicking the can down the road. This community is growing. graduate from McKay High School. And we don't have enough schools. This bridge needs to be built. And I tell you what, the carpenters would be more than happy to build it for you. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stover. Zach Stone, followed by Jim Griggs.
Mayor, Councilman, City of Salem that made it here tonight. Good job. Proud of you. I've been a resident of Salem for 42 years. I live in Ward 8. I've lived there almost my entire life, gone to school. I went to school at South Salem High School and had to deal with that bridge for 4 years. Back then, in the 90s, it wasn't that bad. But today, in 2019, it is terrible. I can't believe what I have to deal with. I have 3 kids at home. I used to take them to Sunshine School downtown. Now they go to Chapman Hill. Why? Because I hate the bridge. I agree with everyone who spoke tonight. I don't think anyone has not made a valid point that I don't need to rehash. Only thing I think we're missing is Portland downtown has 8 bridges to cross the exact same river we do. 8. If you count the Selwood and the St. John's, that's 10. We have 2. One way, and one way the other. That's it. Think about it.
Thank you very much. Jim Griggs, followed by Danielle Hamilton and Evan White.
Good evening. My name is Jim Griggs. I live in Ward 7, Councilor Cook's ward, at 260 Washington Street South. I've worked in downtown Salem for 42 years as an attorney, now retired. Still a property owner in downtown Salem, and of course our residents on Washington Street. I've spoken in support of the bridge in the past, and I'm not going to repeat that today. I'm not here to ask you for support of the bridge. Rather, I'm here to ask you to allow the city to respond to the inquiries made by LUBA, to allow this process to be completed. If you delay our response to LUBA or respond negatively, we will lose any realistic chance to build another bridge for at least another 20 years. Basically, I'm asking you to allow your constituents to obtain all the information, including price, to make a fully informed decision about whether they're willing to pay for a bridge. Without this process being completed, that information will not be available to them, and frankly, the process will stall, and we will not have another opportunity for decades. After our responses to LUBA, our community may choose to support the bridge in its proposed location. They might want to evaluate other locations or other configurations, or they might simply determine that no bridge is good enough to pay as much as it might cost to build, but at least they will make a fact-based decision. Decisions of this magnitude shouldn't be decided by this council. Decisions of this magnitude must be decided by all the residents of this community. Give them the opportunity to get through this process, get the facts they need to make a fully informed decision, and let your constituents have the opportunity to vote. The poll suggests that those constituents are going to overwhelmingly support this bridge, regardless of what your personal feelings are about their chosen mode of transportation. Give your constituents the opportunity to vote. That's what I'm asking you to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Evan? Or no, Danielle. Where is Danielle? Are you Danielle?
I am.
Come on down.
You have an Evan.
You bring your band?
Good
What's it?
evening. I did. We're like the entertainment for the night,
It's
right?
a backup music.
Yeah. My name is Danielle Hamilton. I live at 2321 West Farthing Way. I am a resident of Ward 8.
My name is Amelia Hamilton. I'm a resident of West Salem, Oregon, and I'm in support of the bridge.
Hello, my name is Evan Hamilton. I'm a resident in West Salem, Oregon, and I'm here to support the bridge.
So first I have a question. How many of you rode your bicycle here tonight? Or the city bus? Good job. At least you put your money where your mouth is. Thank you for that. So I find that really interesting. So tonight I really want to speak to the opposition's idea that improving public transit will solve traffic issues and alleviate the need for the third bridge. While I am fully in support of improving public transit, it's not going to solve my family's issues with trying to get around town. I believe we need to separate these two topics. We keep kind of convolute the issue of whether we move forward on the bridge with public transit, and I feel like they're two totally separate issues and they need to not be on the same topic of conversation. And I brought the kiddos and all of their equipment to kind of demonstrate that. And that's really what I want to talk about. We talk about a bicycle. I'm not sure a bicycle I can put that on. Or how about a bus system? I don't know a bus schedule that can accommodate our family schedule. Today is a perfect example. I picked my daughter up at 2:50. She had a 4 o'clock dentist appointment on Lancaster. I had to drive back home and get my son at 5 o'clock and then get here. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick my daughter up at 2:50. I'm going to leave at 3:30 to go to a wrestling match at Judson. I'm going to be there till 6:30, come home, go pick my son up at Straub and his friend, drop them off, and then I'm going to take my daughter and pick up her friend and go to CDT to drop her off at dance class by 8 o'clock. Is there a bus system that will accommodate that schedule? No. I don't think so. So what I'm hearing for conservative numbers and how long it will take if we stop this, moving this forward right now is 13 years. In 13 years, Evan will be 25 and Amelia will be 27. So let's just move this forward so that these two aren't here to testify at 25 and 27.
Thank you. Evan, followed by Steve Anderson and Jeff Miller.
Good evening. I'm the other Evan White. I live in Ward 7 and glad I don't have to follow a concert. I'm going to comment briefly on page 38 of the staff report, which presents a conceptual funding strategy for the bridge, suggesting that $200 million of the funding would come from higher gas taxes, vehicle registration fees, and property taxes. It also shows that $175 million would come from imposing a $1.50 per crossing toll on the new bridge and the two existing bridges. What I don't find in the staff report or in the underlying EIS is any study or discussion of the effects of tolling upon traffic demand. And if federal and state funding is not available, the toll would probably have to be closer to $3 per toll. So I would urge council to vote for the no-build alternative and look for cheaper ways to improve traffic around town. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Steve Anderson.
Let's make sure it works.
Go ahead, Steve. Clocks are running.
All right, Steve Anderson, 3240 Northwest Geller Road, West Salem. Quickly, just a new thought to think about. We do need a bridge, but not this one. And let me explain why. It was very clear when ODOT came to West Urban Neighborhood Association and shared the compromises on this bridge, why this doesn't work. It's clear in the record that before council that the number of intersections that fail to meet mobility standards are greater than the no build. These are 7 intersections in Northeast Salem that will now fail because they currently are at 22 to 50% of capacity. This is the bridgehead for the new bridge. What's interesting is this bridgehead on both sides of the new bridge will fail to meet congestion standards when it meets. These neighborhoods currently do not have this problem. They're going to have an excess of capacity of at least 125% and safety issues in their neighborhood. What's interesting is you ask yourself, why would an extra bridge cause this congestion problem? Ferret through all the data. ODOT found out after you do everything that 960 more cars will go over in the morning and 2430 in the afternoon. More flow, more traffic, more congestion because it puts more traffic into a congested neighborhood, a failed system. If you look at the cost, and this bridge is built in 10 years in 2030, it's going to cost that kind of money, some between $500,000 to $800,000 for the AM peak, just to move a car across that bridge when it's new. If you look at the Salem River Crossing and you compare, it's going to be built probably in 10 years, $571,000 to get 940 more cars in the morning at 24:30 in the afternoon. If we do it in phases, phase one will be built there. And if you look at that, if you look at what you've rejected on a 10-year life for the current bridge and that congestion task force, much less, much less. So what is an interesting thing here, SCAT data showed for this increase that this bridge will not last longer than 2040 to handle its capacity. Marine Drive already handles a lot of these issues as built. It's currently have $3.8 million in budget for a $10 million project. What it looks like is T.S. Eliot's limitation. We need a bridge. The current design, because of cost savings, fails to provide relief. It causes more problems in our community, and it affects us in a negative way. Bimodal transportation happens with Marine Drive. There's already solutions on the table. It doesn't preclude a new bridge. We need a new bridge, but not this one. There's been a lot of concern about...
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Jeff Miller and E.M. Easterly.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Miller. I live in Ward 8. I'm the vice chair of the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board. You all should have received a letter in your packet, and I just wanted to read it aloud real quick for public record. The West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board is advisory to the Urban Renewal Agency in matters related to building, rehabilitation, new development, housing, transportation, along with additional duties in the West Salem Urban Renewal Area, as described in the West Salem Urban Renewal Plan. During our meeting on Wednesday, February 6th, the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board unanimously agreed to make a recommendation to support the third bridge process. The West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board recommends that the Urban Renewal Agency / City Council continue with the process, ultimately to construct the third bridge crossing, as we believe that it will help transportation, transit, congestion, facilitate new retail, business offices, mixed use, and multifamily investments, as well as create redevelopment opportunities that will increase the tax base within the West Salem urban renewal area and benefit the community in whole. And that's it. Here to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. E.M. Easterly, followed by Christopher Ray.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett, members of the City Council, E.M. Easterly, 775 Fir Gardens Northwest. The written testimony I submitted earlier offers examples of the complexity surrounding the council decision to support Councilor Lewis's Luper remand response motion. The remand issues the city must address were reviewed by City Attorney in a November memo. He included 1, correct the population projection, 2, explain how the zoning for the annexed property limits the use to urban transportation uses, 3, show the proposal complies with comp plan Willamette Greenway policies. Item 1 is simple to fix. Get new numbers. Item 2, the zoning question is more complex because neither Polk County nor the City of Salem have transportation-only zones. Item 3 will require the city to review the Salem comp plan Willamette Greenway's policies and adopt a finding confirming that the Salem River Crossing Project complies with those policies, including the preservation of parkland. If the council chooses to tackle these remand issues, the process is fraught with time-consuming procedural obstacles, not objections, obstacles. Public hearings, whether the LUBA accepts the remand findings adopted by the city, and potentially another LUBA remand. There also remains the multiple final EIS questions offered in my written testimony. Whether all these steps can be completed by the end of September remains an open question. Finally, as our city's policymakers, does this council know the costs, and is this council prepared to fund the expense of responding to the LUBA remand and completing the studies and documentation required to affirm the de minimis assumptions contained in the draft EIS by September 30th?
Thank you, E.M. Christopher Ray, followed by Jeanette Scott, and then Sarah Duvall.
Mayor Bennett and members of the City Council, my name is Christopher Ray, 7226 Meadowood Street in Kaiser, and it's a pleasure to testify before you this evening. As a banker by trade, I've been a resident and business person in the Salem area since 1997. I work at 315 Commercial Street Southeast in Ward 1, and I commute across the bridge to call on prospects and customers several times each week. Additionally, I drive professionally in the Portland area more than 700 miles per week and witness firsthand the efficiencies facilitated by a robust bridge infrastructure. I believe that a third bridge is an integral piece of infrastructure for the continued growth and vitality of our communities. The transportation bottleneck caused by the absence of a third bridge impedes economic growth, endangers lives by slowing the flow of emergency medical services, and essentially says to our citizens west of the river, you do not matter. For these reasons, I submit my support for allowing the third bridge process to continue. Failing to do so would be obstructionist and irresponsible. Don't let that be your legacy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christopher. Jeanette Scott, followed by Sarah Duvall, followed by Kelly Martin.
Thank you. I'm Jeanette Scott. I live in Salem Town. Good evening, councilors. Tonight, as you are considering whether to finish the EIS and move forward with the new bridge, I hope you're aware of the newly introduced Senate Bill 652, currently working its way through the state legislature. The 2017 transportation package passed by the legislature included funding for a seismic retrofit to the Center Street Bridge in 2025. As we are all aware, the Cascadia earthquake could wipe out our current bridges. These bridges are identified by the state as the seismic lifeline for West Salem and all of Polk County. Senate Bill 652 is disastrous for the prospects of our retrofit project. It specifically calls for putting the Center Street Bridge project dead last for funding. Every other project, including mega transportation projects in Portland, must be completed before funding for our seismic retrofit. As you know from your prior support of seismic retrofit for the library and for the police facility, our community is extremely vulnerable to the effects of this looming disaster. About 20% of our community would be cut off with no access to help or any way to get out. With this development in mind, building a seismically designed bridge is the only sensible thing to do. The lives of thousands of your citizens depend on it. Please don't play Cascadia roulette with our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Duvall, followed by Kelly Martin, followed by Tim Clark.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Duvall. I live in Ward 8 at 1848 Nut Tree Drive Northwest. And I guess I am here to just express my dismay, the disheartenment that I know people value their own opinion, but to value your own opinion so highly that you're willing to cast aside decades of hard work, considered thought, studies, millions of dollars spent. Yes, there will be many more millions spent, but millions of dollars spent to further your own agenda is just so disheartening. Luba has given more than sufficient time to answer these 4 questions. It's been kicked down the road to here because it's some people's agenda to make sure those questions are never answered and stop this process right here and right now, and not allow the constituents a choice or to go further forward or to have those questions answered or the information provided to them. And I just find that very discouraging and disheartening. And I hope that you will reconsider and at least let the process go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Martin, followed by Tim Clark.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I feel like you guys need to stand up and do jumping jacks for a minute because I feel like the air is getting like sucked out. There you go. See, thumbs up. Anyway, I'm the president of the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors. We have over 1,100 members serving our community who are urging you to vote yes to allow city staff to prepare and respond to the issues raised in the Luba remand concerning the Salem River Crossing. We appreciate the information that was provided as a result of the January 30 work session. Tonight is not about making a final decision on whether or not to build a bridge. You've heard this all night long. But it's more about just saying yes to Luba. I can go on with my whole script, or I feel like we're going to bore each other, and I can go off script. I am a member of Ward 4, I believe, and a small business owner. And what I see in the real estate industry is people are dividing and they're moving outside of Salem. So I feel like the commerce of Salem is actually going elsewhere because they can't commute and live within the city limits. And so I just urge you to vote yes on behalf of Mid-Valley Association of Realtors. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Clark, followed by Rob Wallace, and then Jim Alheiser.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, city staff, and other state representatives that are here, and county representatives. My name is Tim Clark. I live at 335 Cameo Street, Northwest, Salem, Oregon, on the west side of Salem. Been a resident there for quite some time, business owner, and an active member on a lot of different community groups that have studied different ways of making West Salem better. As you hear a lot of things tonight that are positive for a bridge, my concerns are that we have to look at what we have already and how it can't last. We need to make a difference, and tearing one down and rebuilding, or even just doing the seismic thing, we're still going to have an issue. I'd like to say that I'm a past president, been president of the West Salem Business Association. For the businesses of West Salem, it's very important to be able to have the infrastructure of bringing products in and out of West Salem across the bridge. And that case will continue to be, and it will continue to grow to be bigger and bigger. As it's been mentioned before, West Salem is the area for a lot of growth to happen. We need to be conscious of this, and our members of the Business Association are working very hard to try to make it not so constraining by having employees come at different times of the day. So we're making efforts to making changes so we can deal with this traffic. But it's going to happen, folks. They're coming. And there's going to be more people, and they're going to have kids, and they're going to be more driving. So the thing about it is, I do encourage that we do move forward, answer the questions that Luba has asked us, and then deal with all the big issues of how to have it addressed for being paid and the design and those standards and when the phases of them too. So thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it. You got a long night. A lot of things are going to happen. And thank you again.
Thank you, Tim. Rob Wallace, followed by Jim Allheiser, and then Brian Lidke.
Hi, I'm Rob Wallace. I live in Ward 8. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a homeowner. We moved from outside of the Salem area into West Salem for better education for our kids, for better opportunities. I voted to support the library. I voted to support the police station. And I'm willing to pay my fair share as a taxpayer. I also would like to have access to the hospital that we're paying for, the police station and the library, all of these things that we help support as residents of West Salem that we wouldn't have access to. It's about safety, being able to ride across the river to access those resources. When you're stuck in the back of an ambulance, it's not about your commute time. It's about how fast you can get to safety services. It's a life and death decision. Cutting us off from the rest of the world potentially when we're willing to pay for the solution is just completely unfair. And I would urge you guys to allow the citizens of Salem the opportunity to decide whether they're willing to shoulder that burden or not. So anyways, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jim Allheiser, followed by Brian Lidke.
Mayor, city councilors, thank you so much for allowing us all to be here tonight and speak to you. I live in West Salem. I'm chairman of the Neighborhood Association in West Salem. West Salem is pretty pro-bridge these days. I don't know if you guys knew that. A few years ago, we actually had a Salem, or a West Salem Neighborhood Association that was a bit more lukewarm on the bridge. Interesting thing about intersections and talking about this intersection is going to be more busy and that one's going to be less busy. Intersections that don't go anywhere right now aren't busy. If they start to go somewhere, they're going to get busy. So just there's that. I wanted to say Salem is poised right now. Right now we have some of the lowest price real estate on the West Coast in the I-5 corridor. We're really poised right now to be a boom town. And strangling it with contrived governmental control, I think is a really disservice to these people. The fellows from the Federal Highway that were here during the work session, really enjoyed hearing them. One of the things they said is the public needs to show that they want this bridge. Check. And another thing with this bridge is, we can argue on Facebook, which is just fun, about traffic and the cost and whether it'll help or whether it won't. But there is no doubt that it will increase Salem's resiliency. So thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate the time. We hope you do your job as a good city council. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm still interested in, Fernandez, is that true? Intersections that go nowhere aren't busy? You're the traffic guy. Never heard you bring that one up. Yeah, Brian Lidke.
Hello, councilors and mayor. My name is Brian Lidke. I've been born and raised here in Salem, Oregon. Currently live in Kaiser. Late 90s and early 2000s, I did live in West Salem, and I loved it out there. One of the main downfalls, though, for me was the traffic back then. And so I would be late to work sometimes, with just traffic backed up with an accident on the bridge. So it got old for me. But when I think about, Salem Bridge, the same system that we've had since 1954. And like in 1954, what did we have, about 50,000 residents in Salem? And we haven't had the same bridge system since then. I just think that it's way overdue, and I ask that you please do not kill the bridge, and thank you very much for your time.
I didn't get his name.
Brian Lidke.
Thank you.
Karsten Hansen, followed by Linda Wallmark, followed by Carl Anderson. Whoop. Karsten, are you here? Okay, Linda, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Linda Wallmark. I live in Ward 3, and I'm here speaking tonight on behalf of 350 Salem, Oregon, which is a climate change activist organization. You know that phrase, think globally, act locally? Well, never was that old saying more true than in this era of climate change. Our home, the planet Earth, is on fire. The international scientific community has given us 12 years in which to act before irreversible climatic catastrophe overtakes us. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, 12 years. And yet, almost all of the scientists' predictions have in fact come true to this point, with one major exception. They were way too conservative. Things are happening much faster than anyone predicted. In the era of climate change, the third bridge represents dangerous lost opportunity costs. With an estimated price tag of anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion, plus the cost in limited time and human energy, a third bridge is a distraction from the real and growing problem, which is climate change. The time, money, and energy to build the bridge could be used to stimulate a rapid and dramatic transition away from the use of fossil fuels in our community's electrical, heating, and transportation needs. This would create jobs and money in our community rather than sending it out of state to large fossil fuel corporations. That time, money, and energy could be used to support land use planning efforts that would efficiently cluster housing around transit corridors and create neighborhoods that enable people of all incomes to easily walk, bike, or bus to their jobs, schools, and grocery stores. We could connect our city with a web of sidewalks, bike paths, and improved transit infrastructure. That time, money, and energy could support a shift from a take, make, waste approach to living, which spews tons of climate-changing gas into the atmosphere, to a healthier, circular model of reduction, recovery, and reuse of materials. All of these actions can be addressed through developing a comprehensive climate action plan, which the city has committed to do in our strategic goals. Salem already is facing a budget shortfall, and we've already seen that dealing with the impacts of climate change can be costly. Consider the over $50 million cost of an ozone water treatment system for our drinking water. We need to be prepared. Climate change is not going away in our lifetimes. We can't afford to be caught flat-footed in the face of climate change impacts while chasing the dream of a new bridge. Please stand firm against building a third bridge. We can better use our limited time, energy, and money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Carl Anderson, followed by Mike Adams.
Hi, my name is Carl Anderson. I live on Rainmaker Court in Northwest Salem, West Salem. I almost wish I didn't live in West Salem because I'm speaking in favor of continuing the bridge work, but not because I live there. I speak in favor of continuing to work on the bridge and resonate with all of the reasons for doing so, but I'm compelled to share a personal story punctuating why I believe work must continue and not punt the issue to the next generation when solutions will only be more expensive and complex than today. I lived in Minneapolis in 2007 when the I-35 bridge across the Mississippi River collapsed during the afternoon rush hour. It was the third busiest bridge in Minnesota, 140,000 vehicles a day, and it was one like about 75,000 around the country that was labeled structurally deficient. Within a couple hours, hundreds of employees at my work were accounted for, all except one person, a friend and colleague, Sherry. She had died instantly along with 7 others, and 145 were injured. I know my experience and what happened in Minnesota after that bridge collapse is why I have my perspective on bridges and why I'm speaking right now. I'm sensitive to the need for good, safe bridges and enough of them, and the wisdom of planning ahead if you have that opportunity. After the bridge collapse in Minneapolis, commute times doubled and tripled, at least for a while. Families and businesses suffered. Emergency vehicles did face delays. Traffic patterns were changed frequently to try to make the best of a pretty much impossible situation. MDOT and other government agencies got a new priority. Others fell through the cracks. Building the replacement bridge was more expensive because of the urgency, and they couldn't have planned ahead. Taxes had to increase to support MDOT and their unique challenges. Some were impacted more than others, but the entire region came together so all could survive and thrive. They weren't prepared, and they couldn't have been. We can be prepared because we fortunately have the opportunity to continue moving forward with the planning. In my mind, and given my experience, continued planning in another bridge would reap benefits should anything happen to our bridge, whether it be a structural issue, natural disaster, or anything else we can't even imagine. Continued planning in a new bridge would be an insurance policy that would pay off should something happen to our current bridge. With shorter commute times, fewer impacts on families and businesses, more options for emergency vehicles, less stress on government agencies, and a reduced likelihood of emergency tax increases. Again, Minneapolis couldn't plan on this, but we can. Please vote to continue work on the bridge.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Evans, followed by Robin Baker, followed by Danielle Bethel. Mike Evans first.
You said me?
Adams. No.
You said me earlier.
Did I?
I'm on there.
No, he was before me. Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry, Mike.
You want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. I'll go. Now that everybody knows who I am, if you haven't already, I've lived in Salem. I moved my family here 33 years ago. And I've owned several businesses. Right now, I own 3 restaurants, one right in the core downtown, one off of State Street, one off of Liberty. All 3 of those, at some time or another, affected by the bridge. I've seen the bridge shut down and traffic backed up in front of my Bow and Vine restaurant, right there on Liberty Street. Just traffic stopped. When people stop in their cars, when those motors are running, and you want to talk environmentalists, the gases that come out at idle are probably worse. So one, you've got cars sitting there in traffic, so your environment is getting all screwed up. 2, people aren't going to get out of their car and go into my restaurants. I'm a businessman. If they're in their cars driving or waiting in traffic, they're not going to come in. They want to get home. As soon as they get home, they're not going to come back out to eat. My North Salem restaurant is right where the new bridge would go, which would be a beautiful thing for me. When I'm delivering food, say if I've got a catering, I do a lot of catering, I'm delivering food out to West Salem or Independence. It takes, on an average day during the slow time, it takes me about 25 minutes to get to Green Villa Barn in Independence. And that's a plug for them. It's a great venue. But when the average time of day that I'm delivering a dinner catering is 5, 6 o'clock. You can't hold that food for more than a couple hours before it starts to just taste nasty. So when I get on, pull out of my restaurant at, say, 4:30, because I have to be in Independence at 5:15, I'm stopped at Pine Street for about 45 minutes. 45 minutes to go a half a mile to get to the bridge. It makes no sense to me. The other thing is the environmental impact of it. I understand, this global warming and everything. If you're not going to get people out of cars that quick. They're just not going to switch. You can't ride a bicycle with a family of 4. You're not going to get on mass transit. You're still going to have some kind of cars. And the electric cars, do you know the dangerous batteries they use in those things and how they have to mine for that? Do you know that the electricity is still made from either a coal or nuclear? There's no environmental savings until we figure out a safer way to make electricity. But in reality, I'm a businessman, and if we don't go forward with this bridge, there's $9 million that has to be paid back. Where's that going to come from?
Thank you. Mike Evans, followed by Robin Baker.
Good evening, Mike Evans, Ward 8. So our city's facing the reality that we're certain to experience a Cascadia earthquake, which will likely be a 9.0 monster that will devastate homes, buildings, roads, and our current bridges. We just don't know when. What we do know is that it's been 319 years since the last one, and they come on an average of every 246 years. We know that 84% of the time, the earthquake would have already happened. We're living on borrowed time. Governor Brown declared January 26, 2019, Cascadia Earthquake Preparedness Day, citing the need for rapid earthquake resilience and calling on operators of our lifeline infrastructure to do more to prepare. Unfortunately, our lifeline across the river will almost certainly be gone. The east end of the bridges is in the worst possible type of soil for liquefaction, and it's not engineered to withstand a major earthquake. The 2017 legislature passed a transportation bill that set aside $60 million for retrofit of the Center Street Bridge in 2025. Unfortunately, as we sit here tonight, the legislature is working on Senate Bill 652, which seems certain to pass. The purpose of this bill is to delay funding for the Center Street Bridge seismic retrofit, moving it to the very last project to be funded. Every project funded by the 2017 bill, including the 3 Portland area mega transportation projects, will have to be completed before any dollars will come to our Center Street retrofit. That's the Rose Quarter, I-5, I-205 Abernathy Bridge, and I-205 widening projects. It virtually assures that Cascadia will arrive in Salem long before the retrofit. We only have one possible bridge that can be built in the next 20 years. It will be engineered to withstand Cascadia. Tonight, you'll vote to either give our community the choice to build it, or you'll vote to take that choice away from your constituents. Politicians in New Orleans faced similar choices, knowing that a major hurricane, their levees would fail. They chose to kick the can down the road, and Katrina came and became a byword for political failure. Tonight, you face a similar choice. Will you lead your community towards a solution to a known problem, or will you kick the can down the road, hope it doesn't happen on your watch? Tonight, you'll become either the council that got her done, or you will earn the title of Katrina Cascadia Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Robin Baker, Danielle Bethel, and then Steve Majerek.
Hi, Council. My name is Robin Baker, and I'm from Ward 1, and I have lived in Salem for 42 years and in West Salem for 27 years. And I had the lovely pleasure of battling the wonderful traffic, as all of you have, a number of times. And I ride the bus and had a number of times have sat in the wonderful traffic trying to hurry up and get home. And if you guys all probably remember 2 years ago in December when we had all that wonderful snow, I sat there on Center Street. It took me 2 hours to go from up there by the mall all the way down to only get to Safeway and going, trying to get home because the wonderful bridge had been stopped. And anyway, so I ended up not being able to go home that night. I had to get a wonderful night's motel, and just as everybody else did that night. And I know that many times as we're trying to cross the bridge at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, it is impossible to cross that bridge. My husband says, I'm not going to come pick you up until after 6 o'clock. I can appreciate it. So many times I have walked across the bridge and said, okay, honey, you can now come pick me up. So I know that we absolutely, positively need that bridge. So we need you guys to all remember about that bridge. And as many of you have already heard about that scary evacuation, we need to get that done so we don't have to worry about that and be able to get our lives safe. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Robin. Danielle, Steve Madrick, and then Nate Levin.
Good evening, councilors and Mayor Bennett. My name is Danielle Bethel, and I'm proud to represent the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce and the over 400 members that we serve annually to make sure that economic viability is something that we're trying to achieve in our community. Tonight, I just have to say, the bridge may reside in Salem, but this is a community, a regional concern. We all have partners that have come to the table. 16 other communities have signed a letter saying they're in it with you. So my message is pretty short. Please engage them, and don't burn bridges, build them. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Mr. Mayor,
Followed
City
by
Councilors,
Nate
Thank
Levin.
you. My name is Steve Majerak, that's M-A-J-E-R-A-K, and I live on Hope Avenue Northwest in Ward 8, just one block off of Wallace. I worked as a nurse at Salem Hospital in the Open Heart Operating Room team from 2000 to 2009. During that time, there were multiple evenings when I was on call to the hospital that I would just stay on that side of the river rather than risk being hung up in traffic on the current bridge. After the rush hour subsided, I would go home and know that I would have a better chance of making it back in 10 minutes. The nights when there was any question about the weather whatsoever, I would just sleep over at the hospital rather than come home, not knowing about the bridge conditions. I have since left there to work at McMinnville Hospital. That drive being 20 miles further, I can make it in the same amount of time. It's a lot less stress-filled as well. Salem Hospital is a great place to work, but I couldn't put up with that mess every day. As I stated before, we live on Hope Avenue. With the proposed Hope Avenue extension where the new bridge would cross, we know that the traffic at our intersection with Wallace would increase by huge numbers of vehicles. We have no idea what this will do to our property value. In 2017, the city gave permits and allowed the Riverview Terrace Apartments to build 60 units directly across Wallace and extended Hope Avenue to connect those units. So now at our intersection to Wallace there, we have not only that traffic, but we have the traffic from Somerset Community and Deer Creek Crossing, about 116 and 60 units, making U-turns there at that intersection, as well as now the traffic coming across to turn into downtown. Even with all that traffic making this an increasingly dangerous intersection, we welcome the new bridge. And we hope that you will go forward with this. Please remember, not only do you have emergency vehicles that need to cross over that bridge, but in the event of any most large-scale emergency, you've got doctors, nurses, and technicians that live on the other side of the river that need to get to the hospital quickly to help others. Please go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate Levin, and then Rex Turner, and then Cheryl Turner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Nate Levin, live at 695 Winding Way Southeast. My first real estate transaction in Salem was in 1976. My wife and I have been very blessed with our years in the community. We have certainly noticed an ebb and flow in the opinions regarding whether a new street or byway or parkway was needed and necessary. We have all seen the compromises that were made to plans and projects to allow for the reduction in impact on a community or a neighborhood, and we have seen the projects redone as reality struck at tremendous cost to the community. One constant is simply that the community has continued to grow and develop. We have added homes and people and businesses and have pushed the boundaries of what was good then, but not so good today. I must encourage you all to accept the simple reality that our community has changed and will continue to change. We need a third bridge because the demands on the current ones have approached capacity. There's not a good time or a bad time to recognize long-term community needs. That's exactly what we're talking about. The thought of throwing away the years of effort and the millions of dollars that have been spent to get us to this point is simply heartbreaking. The cost and the time to come back to this point in the process will take longer and be substantially more expensive to the community if we have to start over. Please be responsible. Do the right thing for your families, your children, and even your grandchildren that could possibly want to reside in this community. The consequences of turning a blind eye to the realities of our transportation needs are truly devastating. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Rex Turner, then Cheryl Turner.
Rex Turner, 3010 Twin Oak Place Northwest, another Salem Town resident. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing me tonight. As you might imagine, the 4 points I had written down by now have already been covered in length, and so I was going to take a pass. And I remembered that property tax bill that I paid this fall, the 11% increase in particular, some of which was to pay for a new police station, which I would sure like to be able to take advantage of. Hopefully I don't need to, but I understand it's going to have other facilities that I'd like to be able to access along with the library. And in particular, I like to eat, so I'd like to have more dining choices than we have in West Salem. I'd like to spend some of my retirement income dining downtown at Bow and Vine, for example, which I haven't had a chance to try yet. We're also at a point in our life where we don't like to eat late at night. We like to eat, around 4 or 5 o'clock. Guess what? We just don't go downtown anymore. We try to find a restaurant in West Salem, and they're fairly limited. Punctuate a couple other points that have already been made. We sure could use some more redundancy for seismic reasons. We all know it's not a matter of if, but when the big one's going to come, and we're very vulnerable right now. It'd be nice to have a modern, seismically upgraded bridge. Emergency service availability kind of was hit, but for those of us who are getting on, well, for anybody really, if you're in West Salem, your hospital is over here. There's one way to get there, and if it's not working, it's a problem. Life or death, literally. And finally, also, this is more than a City of Salem issue. Obviously, anybody that's going to the coast, say from Central Oregon, is going to pass through here, and vice versa, coming from the coast the other direction. Most of those people, I don't think, came to stop in Salem on the way. They just want to get through. It'd be nice to have a little ease in the traffic for that. That'll help us all out. And finally, Cheryl, my wife, is going to take a pass and let me speak for her. That might be a first, by the way. But anyway. She did want to say, though, please don't politicize this. Just let the people speak as continue on with the process. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Cheryl. Craig Evans. Then Nathan, you're next.
Craig Evans, West Salem resident. Good evening, councilors. Tonight I'd like to ask you to do 3 things: listen, learn, and lead. First, listen. Listen to the voices of the thousands of your constituents who can hardly believe that you're thinking of killing this bridge, which is so clearly needed. How can that even be considered? Listen to the voices of 16 mayors of cities surrounding Salem, Marion and Polk County commissioners who have partnered with Salem through the 13 years to get to this point. They're all asking you to complete the process we have jointly pursued so our community can decide whether we will build a bridge. Don't be controlled by a few loud religious zealots that claim to speak for progressives. There's a lot of progressives that have to get across that bridge, who believe driving is a sin, and they clutch their pearls at the thought of people driving a single occupancy vehicle. My goodness. Most of your constituents drive, and they need to do so to lead productive lives. Listen to their voices and respect them. Second, learn. Learn from the fact-based reports that you've received from the consultants and city staff and ODOT professionals. Learn from the congestion task force, which told you that our community bridges are at 101% of capacity in the morning commute and 107% during the evening commute. Our population growth is forecast to be an additional 1% a year in West Salem, not including the growth for the rest of Polk County. 25% growth in traffic is expected over the next 25 years, and it's going to create exponential growth in congestion. Learn from the 126-page report you received prior to the work session 2 weeks ago, describing nearly every aspect of the proposed Salem River Crossing. In it, you learned that contrary to the misinformation that Councilor Anderson keeps repeating, building the bridge will reduce peak travel times of our congestion by 50% compared to not building a bridge. It'll reduce all forms of tailpipe emissions and cut CO2 by 22% compared to not building a bridge. We will not, and our community won't build a bridge if the community is not willing to support it. If it's not worth it, it's not going to happen. Trust the people to make a decision. We voted for a police station and a library. We know what's good for this community, and we will support it. Let the people make their choices. Finally, I'd ask you to lead. Now you know the facts. Don't just follow the demands of a small but loud minority of people. Listen to the majority and let us have our voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.
Mayor, City.
Sorry, Nathan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mayor, City Councilors, here on behalf tonight of the West Salem Business Association. West Salem Business Association has been an active part of the Salem community since 1975. Part of our commitment to the community is in regards to working with individuals, citizens, groups, and businesses to improve the livability and business climate in Salem. The West Salem Board of Directors is in agreement that traffic and congestion, particularly in regards to West Salem, is something that needs to continue to be worked on. Many stakeholders have made significant progress in this regards. It's essential that the City of Salem Council move forward with all the necessary land use action and respond to LUBA's remand and questions concerning the Salem River Crossing. I just wanted to say, personally, I'm a resident of Ward 8. My wife and I have property in Ward 2, and I run a business in Ward 1. I've been here for 42 years. My father was here for 55 years. My grandfather was here for 60 years. I've said it over and over and over again over the past 15 years of being involved. It's time for this city council to move forward with the LUBA answering, and then allow the citizens to make the decision going forward. Thank you.
Okay, John Ellis, followed by Roger Schneider. When Roger's done, I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll all shift. You all can go over to Anderson Room, and Anderson Room can come over here. How's that sound?
Go get something to eat.
Jan.
Staying right.
John, go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Ellis. I'm in the urban growth boundary out of Ward 8, just past the West Salem High School. So by the time, if this bridge comes to fruition, I'll be in the city of Salem. I'm looking forward to it. I think they offer a lot of good services, and you know, I'm all for being annexed in. However, I do want to emphasize I'm really concerned about the traffic and what a third bridge would mean to people in West Salem, as well as people downtown here as well, because I've been sitting in downtown a lot as well, waiting to go over the bridge. I just want to kind of remind everybody, I worked for the city for 10 years, and in early 00s, we had a jumper on the bridge around 3:30 in the afternoon. And I remember walking across the bridge around 10 o'clock, and my wife picked me up on the other side after I had a nice meal and hanging out. And it wasn't because I was held late in a council meeting. So And in 2030, they say the population is going to be from 150,000 to 300,000. So I kind of cringe at the thought of increased traffic. I am definitely a zero emission kind of person. So I want to support the comments on that as well. But again, my electronic car will have to go over the bridge if I want to stay as a citizen in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Roger Schneider.
Hello, my name is Roger Schneider. I can't believe I'm doing this. This is my first time I've ever done anything like this, but
You're doing really good so far.
I reside in Ward 3. I own a business, the only restaurant in Ward 8. This city's growing. You guys have heard that. Everyone knows that. Why not let our roads grow and our bridges grow with it? The city deserves to have newer, safer roadways. When the bridge is involved in an emergency, it's pure chaos. Everyone knows that. But we're invested in the city. We've passed the library, the jail, the city hall. We welcome the bridge tonight. There's going to be an answer tonight. There will be a decision made tonight, but don't let it end there. Rather, everyone is for the decision made tonight or not for the decision tonight. We, the people, need to continue to be heard. I encourage the city to stay involved. Don't give up. Remember this when voting in the future.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess, and I mean 5 minutes, and we'll go back at it. We've got about 32 names left. Okay? Okay. Everybody be sure to take a seat so we can kind of get a count in case we can move some more people over from Anderson. So anyone standing up, I please ask you to sit down, and then we can figure out what our empty space looks like. Great, thank you. Okay, we will resume with Chris Wilhelm and Dwayne Lautenbach and Cora Lautenbach. Chris?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Chris Wilhelm. I reside in Ward 8. The first thing I wanted to do is thank all these city staff that are sitting over here, Mike Jaffe from SCATS, the friends from ODOT. The amount of work that they've put into this over the past 13 years is stunning. If you spent just the time reading all of the question and answer from Julie's and her staff and the assistant director, that was an impressive compendium. So thank you all for that amount of work. One of the things I just wanted to mention real quick in support of Mr. Lewis's motion is the funding question. We just passed $18.6 million for the city library retrofit, $61.8 million for the police station, and $619.7 million for Salem Kaiser School District. Of that $619.7, those funding sources were an $8 million grant from the state and $611.7 from property tax. This bridge is $435, but if I remember correctly, that staff report showed a lot more than just property tax to pay for that. So we could pick property tax, we could pick tolling, we could pick federal funds if we can get them, state funds, regional transportation funds. I think I already said tolling, but there's also other choices that were all outlined there, and such as vehicle registrations, fuels taxes. Even ODOT has that Origo program for miles actually traveled, rather than paying taxes in a different way for fuels. There's a bunch of choices on the table to pay for $435, but we just show that we would pay $690.1 in property tax alone. So I think that we could figure out how to fund this with as many choices as we have, and I would like to see the bridge move forward, and I support Councilor Lewis's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne Lautenbach? And then Cora is behind you, then Tom Hoffer.
Yeah, that's my mom back here. She's limping along with a couple of bad news.
Ah.
I'm not much of a public speaker, but I will say this. West Salem people are needing this bridge to get anywhere. In fact, there's already places I avoid going like the plague, like the Lancaster Drive area, which is just a nightmare to get around as it is. So, but I'm kind of confronted with having to go across the West Salem Bridge. And to be honest with you, if it doesn't get pushed forward, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. You really should, because you're not doing the city of Salem a favor at all. And in fact, maybe us common sense people in West Salem should just pull away from Salem altogether, take our tax money, build our own damn bridge, and say the heck with you, charge city of Salem for coming across it. So that's about all I got to say.
Thank you. Cora.
Hi, I'm Cora Lautenbach. I've lived in West Salem since '77. Operated a dairy farm there. I hope you guys and women will respect the people of West Salem. Not only West Salem, but all the surrounding areas who have to use this bridge. Respect them. Vote for what they need and want. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Tom Hoffert and then Christine Vaught.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you. My first time in front of many of you in 20 years. I hearken back to a different time, and what I'd like to talk to you folks about is a true community leadership initiative. And what I think, I represent the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce and have the opportunity to represent over 1,000 business members in this community, over 35,000 employees. And as we look collectively, I'm thinking about what happens tomorrow. We have an opportunity with this council to answer 3 LUBA questions that allows the process to continue on. And we're not asking that you say, I'm in favor of a bridge or opposed, but rather to believe in a process that has been started 13 years ago. And as I looked at a lot of our past information, it was quite a few years before 13 years ago that the third bridge started being discussed. We have a significant financial investment that has been done. We have municipalities in front of you that have said, we are behind this, counties that are supporting this effort. We'd just like for this effort to be able to be continued, to be analyzed, and then we can take on the funding mechanisms, how this community can come back to the table and say we want to have that collective discussion together. But to kill this now sends a very interesting message to this community, one that I hope we can avoid. This is not a time for Salem to be divisive at all. We need to be coming together more than ever. And as a business community, I will assure you, we're at the table here every day to make sure that we will partner with you and have those active voices heard. But this is a time that we can take a vote and move forward tonight that allows a process to continue. I hope you take that action, and we appreciate that type of leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Vaught? Okay. Diane Chavez, followed by Ruth Smith.
Thank you. I'm Diane Chavez. I currently live in Ward 1, as do my son and my grandkids and his wife. I've lived in Salem about 5 years because of my grandkids. The first year I lived on the west side, and since then I've moved to downtown Salem. And I'm not totally opposed to a bridge, but it's just that I have other priorities that I think Salem should be spending its money on. For one, I would like to see some mass transit here. I am concerned about the planet I'm leaving for future generations, for my grandkids and the rest of humanity. So what I'm imagining is, what if we built a parking structure on the west side, somewhere near the bridge, ran a transit loop that looped regularly around downtown, past the library, past City Hall, past Willamette University, the hospital, the train station, the parking structure on the east side, and back through past the Capitol. If you had that, you could stop traffic that was coming into that area on the west side, legally giving more capacity to the bridge, allowing more of the capacity to the bridge to be available. You could also pick up people from the east side and from the parking structures on the south. Again, clearing that area in downtown Salem. I live across the street and I walk through downtown Salem often. I would like to see far less traffic there. So that's my thinking. Before living here, I lived in Springfield, Oregon for a while. I could, from my house, walk to the bus station, take a bus across the river, down to the Metro Hub in Eugene. I could go watch a concert at the Holt Center, take that bus home. It was a 10-minute ride across the bridge on the bus. It was always full. I could come home at 11 o'clock and not think about it 7 days a week. You know, we need realistic mass transit, electrified mass transit, because not everybody can afford to drive an electric vehicle, as I can. In addition to that, I also have a lot of questions as I was listening tonight. I can understand the concern about getting to a hospital. One of the questions I have is, are hospitals seismically safe? I mean, you know, you have to get there, it has to be standing. And why don't we have a hospital on the west side? It's still a long ways away, and it seems like it would be wise to have another hospital. Eugene and Springfield had 2 or 3 hospitals that you could go to. So I think we need to look at a bigger picture than just a bridge to solve the problem of more cars when we have more people. We can't add more street capacity to downtown Salem, and so you need to think about the number of cars you want to bring to downtown Salem as the population increases.
Great, thank you very much. Ruth Smith.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Pardon me?
I said, there you are.
Okay. I live in Ward 6, and Chris Hoy. I've talked to a lot of people just lately. The last few people said, well, 40 years ago they talked about a new bridge, and I think that was talking about a new bridge from Highway 22. I think we're all familiar. It goes east and west, and we have to kind of divert it. 20 years ago, they actually voted to stop the bridge so that we could have the downtown traffic for helping build up the business. I think a lot of you maybe were here, this was before your come, but 40 years ago, a lot of people said, yeah, we're going to get this bridge done. Well, think about it. It's a highway, right? Why don't we continue the highway? So if the downtown people don't want to have a bridge, but they want to have business, now we have a new city council, and it says we got to get the traffic out of downtown Salem. But if you think about it, how many times do we have to rethink this? There's $19,547,000 that have been spent on this report, that they have done excellent reporting, and I think, what if you ask more reporting? I asked all the city council people, and I even got hung up with Tom because he didn't want to listen to me. But you know what? I remember Sarah, that she said in her report, let's do that first phase, get the bridge across. And we thought, no, that doesn't make sense to me, but you know what? I think if we did the bridge to get that one bridge across and not spent all that other money building up West Salem roads, that added up to $120 million to build the 5th bridge. I think we ought to go for the 5th bridge tonight, because we know that we need to build up around Salem, but not into Salem. So if I had a motorhome or a truck, I could park it in that parking lot, right, ma'am? So, and so I can walk across the bridge with and leave my truck over on the other side. Is that, he's like, well, let's just do the highway. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gene Pfeiffer.
Hi, I'm Gene Pfeiffer. I'm a design build specialist. I live in Silverton, 1392 South Water Street. I was married in Salem and went to school at what is now Salem Academy. My roots are here. And I know that the traffic in Salem affects us in Silverton as well, the demographics, the business. My wife is 49 years now. The first 40 years she was downtown all the time, but she doesn't like to anymore because of the congestion. So I'm here tonight because a group, well, maybe would have been anyway, but one of the groups I'm civically involved with in Salem every Wednesday morning said, get out there and support the bridge. Well, I don't support anything unless I know about it. I have for years supported it, but I've also said that we have a priority that we're not taking care of, and that's the existing facilities. We have bridges that need to be upsized seismically. We need ramps put in. We've got all kinds of things that aren't getting done. So the last 2 days I lobbied this council quite a bit. I sent documents, hopefully you received them. And I do want to say that I believe that those that have been saying no represent their constituents. I hear a lot tonight saying, gee, they're listening to a small group. There had to have been a lot of people for them to be elected. So I think that's important to recognize that. So what I'm going to bring is something different. When studying the plan, I see that it isn't right. The bridge is way too long. It's 3,600 feet long. I drew up a plan that shows continuing the traffic on the north side of town, instead of when it curves and goes down Commercial Street, just keep going straight across the river. The span of the bridge at that point is about 1,300 feet. And if you realize how much less that is in volume and detail, that the bridge can be built for half the amount of money. Now I'll go to the other side, and the plan that was received from the city, it shows that we're going to put in 3 additional lanes onto Wallace Road on the south end. That is not going to solve anything. All the traffic lights are there. We have to have a ramp that goes off of Marion Street Bridge and down into what is called the Marine Drive. It's not happening. It's not on the plans. I say you go back to the boards and find a plan that really works, and I encourage you to move forward. You've got a big investment in it. Do the other things first as a priority. Fix what we have. Get the ramps in. But we have to plan for this other bridge because it will take care of traffic that is international or national commerce. We do need to have it, but we have to have it so it moves through town smoothly. It doesn't have any stops. Right now, the way it's designed, there's stops in it. All it's going to do is create more suggestions. So,
thank you, Gene.
Thank you for letting
Mark
me speak.
Chase. John King.
First of all, Mayor, again, Mark Chase. I used to live in Ward 8. Now I will live in Ward 7. I want to thank you for your service, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for your time. It was a lot to listen to. I have one word for you to think about tonight, and that is all these people sitting around here in green and those who are green in their heart for the bridge, and that is hope. Don't allow our hope as a people to have better transportation be shut down tonight. Vote yes, move it forward, and give us a future, a hope for a better Salem, a hope for better transportation. Whether you build it 1,300 feet or as long as a Hong Kong bridge, I don't care. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I've looked at the study. I've looked at my neighbors, and we talked to in Ward 7. And the folks that I represent and the folks that I'm here to talk to about tonight is hope. Hope for a future, hope for Salem. Vote yes, move this forward, be responsible.
Thank you, Mark. John King, Jeff Doring, and Dan Clem.
Honorable Mayor, City Councilors, and constituents. My name is John G. King. I live now at 1977 Manor View Lane Northwest in West Salem, Capitol Manor. I grew up in Salem the first 30 years of my life, going to Old Bush Elementary, Old Leslie Junior High, the 6th class of South High, and Willamette University. At that time, I lived for 17 years in the block where Hal Edwards Mortuary, Dirksen Mortuary, is there on Commercial Street. At the time I started living there, Commercial Street was two ways, and it was the Salem part of Highway 99E, and trucks used to rattle the windows of the house I lived in, shifting gears in the middle of the hill. One way was then done, Liberty in, Commercial out. The bypass was done, and eventually I-5 was done to move traffic on highways and in the city better. I too have supported the library bill, the police station bill, and also I remember back a few years ago there was the theme was keep Salem moving, and there was a bill to improve streets and things like that so that traffic would move in Salem. Well, I don't think that no new bridge, and I don't know if this bridge is the answer, there's been a lot of things talked about tonight, but no new bridge to me doesn't fit into keep Salem moving. I lived on Mission and High Street at one point, on Mission Street between High and Liberty at one point, and the Holiday Inn was built in the corner of Commercial and Mission. It's come and gone. It was built there because the highway at that time, they were going to come across the river there, and Mission Street was going to be the deal to get out to the freeway. It's interesting because here in the city council for years, there was a map for a belt line around the city of Salem, which would have had use for two bridges. And I don't see that in here anymore. Well, as I look at what's going on in West Salem, you got now the old Limbeck orchards are being developed into a subdivision. There's more stuff going on at Michigan City Lane and the end of Orchard Heights. So we're going to have a lot of traffic. Now, I didn't ride my bike tonight because I didn't want to drown. I've been told that people don't ride the bus in West Salem. I think one of the reasons for that is if you get on the bus, you got to wait for it. Then you ride down to Ross, you got to wait again, and you go half a mile over the bridge to get where you're going. That's not really a real interesting solution. So what's the answer? Build Marine Drive, build a new bridge and connectors, get highway traffic on highways, better access over the river, and commercial traffic out of Salem. And so I would vote yes to keep looking at a bridge and keep Salem moving. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. King. Jeff Doring, then Dan Clem.
Yes, Mayor, Councilwomen, Councilmen. I brought notes with me today. They're quite specific, and I think you know our position here. But I've lived in West Salem for about 25 years, and I've noticed the congestion as time has gone on. It's gotten worse and worse. And what I would say is if you do not proceed with looking at the proposals, wherever the bridge is, whatever it means, getting another means over the river, that we should, if you do close the books on the bridge, okay, you should look at a building moratorium in West Salem. And I'm really serious because I'm afraid property values are going to go down with all this congestion. I don't think people are going to move to West Salem if they have a choice. And it's just going to get worse and worse. And we're seeing more and more of these multi-level or multi-family housing developments go into West Salem as well as new development, and you're just making the congestion worse. So let's open the books and look at the proposal of keeping this thing going on. And I did hear some interesting statistics about a minute longer. Usually it takes me more than a minute. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But a little exercise, get your lungs breathing, take a big breath, get your smartwatches out. They said it would take 1 more minute of waiting over the bridge. So set your smartwatches now, take a big breath, and hold it. Everybody holding it? Okay. Okay. Keep it going. Keep it going. I want you to look at that minute. That minute is a very long time. And for me, it's actually greater than a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff Doring, then Dan Clem. That was Jeff Doring? Oh, okay. Thanks, Jeff.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and city councilors. My name
Sorry.
is Dan Clem, a resident of Ward 8. Upon assuming council responsibilities in 2003, it was interesting to see how Salem had done a thoughtful job in planning growth, where it would occur, how it would occur, and what sort of infrastructure needed to come with it. West Salem was designated as one of the primary areas to develop multifamily acreage. So acreage turned into multifamily housing, as well as single-family housing and a number of other amenities. We worked hard to try to understand how to growing families would have opportunities for housing, that there would be transit services, that there would be medical services. We worked really hard to do that. I inherited promises and plans that were made to accommodate the natural growth that was identified for that area, more so than other parts of town. I will tell you that it was a struggle, but we knew, commensurate with that growth that had been planned in good state land use planning, that we had to have transportation infrastructure. So I joined the transportation committees representing City of Salem on these regional boards. I walked in the door, and there hadn't been a representative from the City of Salem, elected representative, in those meetings for over 2 years. All of the projects that Salem uses state and federal money is voted on by the cities and counties that testified here tonight that are part of those regional state and transportation dollars. It took 5 years to restore Salem projects back to the regional funding streams that consequently improved Wallace intersection, provided bike lanes, provided sidewalks, and a number of other amenities. I can't believe we're back here again repeating history. And that is cutting back funding on Kubler, cutting back funding on 12th Street, cutting back funding on a number of other transportation issues cost us tens of millions of dollars 10 years later. This vote that you have tonight, whether to send a letter, to me is unconscionable. You have to send a letter. You have to complete the process. Councilor Anderson indicated after a meeting one night when the council voted on the police bond measure that he felt obligated to honor the process. I would ask that you honor the process in land use and transportation on a regional basis as well as for the City of Salem, and that you send a letter in support of completing the LUBA questions and answering those. This plan for the third bridge has many options for you to consider.
Thank you, Dan. Jim Boo. Followed by George Fletcher, followed by Richard Fow. Right?
Councilors, Mayor, thank you for the time. My name is Jim Vu. I'm a citizen living in Ward 8, and I'm property owner in Ward 1. I've come here working a lot with downtown. Most of you guys I know through the Salem Main Street Association, really trying to develop downtown. The success we've had on it is about making a bigger pie, not about fighting over pieces. What I'm asking you today is to think about this philosophy about this bridge being built. The future of Salem depends on the infrastructure we lay on today. Salem's current population is 170,000. What we're projecting out is have 1% growth every year, 1,700 people every year coming into Salem. Just simple math, divide by 4 on that one. We're looking at 400 or 500 new homes for those people. What we're looking at, or the way our city planners have designed our city, is to grow out into West Salem, as Dan Clemens mentioned before. What you're looking at right now is the number of homes that are available for our city. We can't grow north. We're going to end up, it's going to be Salem Kaiser Woodburn soon. It's the hyphenated name of our school district. We can't go down south. Capacity is filling up. Our options are going to go east or west. East, we don't want to go that way. Our city planners didn't want that because we have high value agricultural land out there. We don't want that farmland to go away and be converted to homes. We designed it to build out west. So what's going to happen is, there's no doubt, the bridge is at capacity. Every study that we've shown shows that the capacity, the volume is greater than the capacity. Studies show that. What I'm asking you for right now is to be able to move forward in this process. This isn't today about, yes, we're building the bridge. You have an ability to say no to it. but please let the process play out. You have constituents that you ran a campaign on about no third bridge. Well, my suggestion and ask for you is to go forward, let the process play out, and then when we go up to that point where we decide to build a bridge or not build a bridge, let the voters decide. Put it out to a vote for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. George Fletcher, followed by Richard. Okay.
My name is George Fletcher. I live in Ward 2. My argument is from history. I came tonight to Salem in 1950. In the 60s, I was in high school, and we were all excited about the new bridge that would be appearing at the end of Pine Street, connecting over to West Salem. And here we are, how many years later? If the people who were making the decisions back then could look forward and see what we're up to now, they would say, we should have built it then. And now, in 1950, many households only had one car. Few people who are looking at the aspects of environment are willing to go back to the type of living that we had when we only had one car. I submit that it would be lunacy not to go ahead with this project.
Thank you, Richard, followed by Zachary Grassley and Rebecca Engel.
My name's Richard Fow. I'm a dentist on Commercial Street right next door to the police station that's going to be built. Thank you for building the police station. When I was at one of the council meetings, they said that when the big earthquake comes, this building is going to be on top of the police cars. We need to do something to alleviate that situation because for emergency situations, we aren't going to have a police. On the office that I'm on is right on Commercial Street, and it's pretty much gridlocked between 4 and 6. And I see emergency traffic go by, and with the sirens going, and they can probably go maybe 2 miles an hour, 4 or 5 miles an hour, trying to get through traffic to get to the hospital. When the police building is finished, I don't see it. It's not going to be any better. It's going to be worse because I hear the streets are becoming more narrow as they're designing it. That gridlocks it more. The police are going to have trouble getting through town. The other thing is I'm worried about, the city has eliminated a lot of the problems with the Cascadia things by building they've done the hospital and made it retrofitted for the earthquake. They've done the fire stations. The next thing is, and they've done the police. So that's going to be ready for when the big one comes. But when the next one comes, it's going to be the bridge. The bridge is going to be in the water, and it's going to be a disaster for the city and for the coast to get to the Willamette Valley and to services that we need. It just needs to be done. If you've done everything else, do this one too.
Thank you, Zachary. Okay. Rebecca. Mark. Oops. Yeah, Rebecca's coming, followed by Mark Bjornson and. Boy. Go ahead, Rebecca. I'll translate this.
Rebecca Engel, Ward 1. I just wanted to come out here and say that I'm not against a third bridge, but I am against this one, having been on the task force for this river crossing many years ago now. It was a long and arduous process, and we spent a lot of hours looking at this, and I don't think that this bridge is going to do what all of you are thinking it's going to do. When we looked at it, over time, it became very clear that exactly what this gentleman said here earlier, that this bridge, the way it's designed, is designed to dump a lot of that traffic back into the same part of the town that is already congested. I think that Wallace is not. I think it is not going to relieve traffic on Wallace and in that area. I think that when we looked at it, what became clear was that it was not actually bridge capacity. Though the bridge gets over capacity, it's because of the onloading and the offloading streets that are not allowing traffic to flow freely. And that doesn't have actually a lot to do with the bridge. It has to do with how traffic gets on and off of the bridge. And those are things that we can address without spending millions of more dollars on something that is not going to, I believe, take care of the problems that we see. And I do think that we have congestion problems. I can see the Marion Street Bridge from my house. I deal with it. That's where I do my shopping. I cross that bridge all the time. But I don't think, after having spent hours and hours on this, that it's going to do what we hope for it to do. And I know that we want to say go forward, but we're not saying with this, when you're saying go forward, that's saying go forward with this one. And I hear a lot of people saying go forward a bridge, whichever one works best, but that's not quite how the process works. And the way the process works is that you're going forward with this bridge and this option, and I don't think this option is going to do what we need it to do as a community. And when we were community members, every single neighborhood association that represented the people of Salem voted against this when they were on the members that were on that task force. There were other members that obviously voted for it, but the actual neighborhood association members that went back to their neighborhoods, including West Salem, voted against it after looking at the option. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Last name Knight, Maris? Well, I just can't read the first name. I apologize. Okay, last name Knight. Tom Knight? Okay. Mark Bjornson? Quint Thomas? Quint will be followed by Angelina Lockhart.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm not a long-term resident of Salem. I moved here from Portland about 5 years ago. All I can tell you is sort of my story and my interest in what's going on, and what I've seen. About 54 years ago, I got my first driver's license. So I've been driving for a little bit of time. During that time, I've lived in the Los Angeles Basin. I've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the greater metropolitan area there. And I've lived in Portland. Now, you might recognize that those are all major cities with major problems associated with traffic. So I've spent probably, I don't know, tens, if not maybe even hundreds of hours, or maybe even days or weeks, sitting in commute traffic in all of those areas around the country. I came to Salem and I thought, wow, this is really nice. There's no traffic here at all. Now, I have been caught on Commercial Street going south around 4 o'clock, trying to get home from Home Depot because I rented something and I needed to use it quickly before I ran out of time. So I turned around and I drove up to the Wheatland Ferry. I thought that would be an interesting thing to do. It cost me about $2 to get across the ferry and probably 30 minutes or so of driving. And that was my solution. But it also made me realize that when I found out that the reason that the bridge was closed was that there had been a motorcycle accident and somebody had been killed, I thought, wow, this is really serious. So in spite of all the hours and days and time I've spent commuting elsewhere, that became a real issue for me here in the Salem area. And certainly as I age and get to a place where I'm going to eventually end up not having a driver's license, that becomes more and more significant to me personally as to whether or not there's adequate ability to get across the river from both the north and the south and the east and the west. So fundamentally, I'm in favor of a bridge. And as the last speaker said, maybe this isn't the right bridge. I can't make that decision. I'm not smart enough. Okay. But a bridge is necessary going forward over the next 20 years. In the meantime, there's something the council can very definitely do. Because I'm a student of traffic. And what I see downtown and in other parts of town is a severe need for new traffic engineering. To change the way that traffic flows, to use time sequences, to use zipper lanes, to use changes in space on the road where buses are not blocking traffic lanes during commute hour. There are many, many opportunities that are going to be needed between now and the eventual construction of the bridge. Because I believe in my heart, this council is seeing the light. You know, government of the people, by the people. The people are giving
Quinn,
you a
I'm sorry, the
mandate.
time's up.
Okay,
I
thank you very
apologize.
much.
Thank you. Angelina Lockhart, followed by Rick Day.
Hello, councilors. I came to the last city council meeting where the expert panel explained everything about the bridge proposal, and thanks for all of you guys for coming out here, but I wish you actually came to the last one where they talked about the bridge, because I was there, and a lot of you weren't. They explained that the reason for the bridge was to improve traffic flow and safety. What they explained is that the bridge wouldn't improve traffic and would make more intersections unsafe that are currently safe. It would move the traffic away from the rich parts of town and put it into the poorer neighborhoods instead. That's what people are actually asking for when they ask for this bridge. Make poor people deal with it. We already have the worst schools, and now you want us to deal with your traffic. We need to move away from the car-dominant traffic model and towards eliminating cars from downtown altogether. This earth is dying. We have less than 20 years until we hit 1.5 degrees Celsius, the point of no return. Can we stop that here by voting no? Of course not. But we can do our part. We need to make a better public transportation system and with park and rides in West Salem and buses running every 5 minutes downtown during rush hours. We need buses that run every 15 minutes on almost every street like Portland. And by the way, families get their kids to and from school, band practice, and sports games by public transportation all the time in New York City and Portland. It can be done. You don't need a car. Your kids don't need a car to go where they need to go, but they do need transportation, public transportation. Study after study on adding lanes to decrease traffic says that it does not work. This bridge will only increase the amount of traffic, not lessen it. The only way that traffic goes down is if you toll it, which means that the poor are no longer able to go over the bridge. I, like many others on the no bridge side, aren't opposed to another bridge. We get that we need one, but not this bridge and not this location. As the experts made clear, we can only vote on the proposed bridge in the proposed area, not a bridge, and then decide the location later. If it was an option to pick another location and vote yes on the bridge, I would be all for it. We need a bridge above Kaiser so the traffic coming from West Salem can go north before crossing over and can avoid Salem altogether. Let's kill the bad bridge so we can move on to a plan for a bridge that makes sense. Let's move forward with plans to make better public transportation and safety, not this bridge.
Thank you. Rick Day. There you are.
Good evening, Mayor, folks. Thank you for being here late tonight. I moved back here after my military service in 1983 and have made this my home since, had numerous businesses and properties here. I guess I have two things to bring up that I'm hopefully not repeating past people. One has to do with the traffic conditions and the wait. Obviously, that's huge lost productivity. And I want to talk about the emergency services side as well. But first, I want to talk about the efficiency side. So those of us that own businesses in the area or to the east and west of the area that has to pass through the area, what we have to do is buy more trucks. More trucks is more pollution, more carbon. So the people that bring up the issue of the pollution and the problem with the carbon, I would tell you that when we can't get across the Columbia or we can't get across the Willamette, we buy more trucks, put more trucks on the road. Where we might get somewhere in 2 hours, we're getting there now in 3 or 4 hours, so we buy 30% more trucks. That's a loss of capital and revenue that could be used to build buildings, buy property, and improve our city that's spent to buy more trucks to waste time sitting still. So there's the issue of capital and efficiency. On the other side, I've been privileged to be an incident commander with the military and with CERT on multiple training events, and Cascadia is our primary concern in this area. And what I'm concerned with and what I've seen around the world is if bridges go down, things become a third world country. And it can happen here, and it will happen here if we don't do something about it. And that's both the Columbia and the Willamette. If you lose those bridges, you don't have access to medical services, goods and services, groceries, or anything else. Utilities break. It's catastrophic. And so you have to do the right thing and plan for the future and build the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Amy Hampton. Okay, Xavier Fennell, Kiernan Fennell, and Joseph Fennell. Okay. Pamela Lyons Nelson, followed by Bob Courtwright. Pamela, do you want to speak?
Actually, yes. Good evening,
Okay.
Mayor and City Council. I'm Pamela Lyons Nelson from Ward 1. And I'm here to say not this bridge, not this time. But I'd really like you to hear it from someone who is a scientist and an excellent researcher. And so I'm going to cede my time, if I'm permitted to do this, to her. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. She has a minute. Go ahead, Mary Ann, fill us in.
I'd like to introduce you to Mary Ann Byrne, and she is also, oh no, you aren't, you're not in my same.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
Okay, I'm Mary Ann Byrne, and I live in Ward 5. And in fact, I'd like to be someone standing here representing all the folks who are not from Ward 8 who voted for our council members to represent our wards. And also, what I would like to say is I've said at many hearings of this type that I have been at since 2012, as we've been studying this whole bridge situation. I moved here from Seattle. There is no traffic here. You have no idea, you folks who have never been out of Salem, what traffic is. So what I would also like to say is there's been a lot of misrepresented facts here tonight. Those of us who have been to all the study sessions, the work sessions, we have learned that this bridge that we're currently looking at is not designed to withstand a 9.0 earthquake. We asked the engineers that, and they said, no, this will not withstand a big earthquake. Then we said, well, then why are we doing it, and why are we spending all this money for it? And they had no answer. The other thing I would like to ask of folks here is how many of you were at the financial workshop that was held? Raise your hands. Okay. When we were, and yeah, I remember Dan Clem, you were there too. The afternoon workshop was mostly government officials and agency people, and they had a grand time playing with the computer logarithm grid and plugged all the right numbers in so it came to the right answer, it came to the right amount of money. The evening group was the general public. As they started putting their numbers in, they started finding out, well, there's going to be this fee and this tax and this toll. And if we adjust these numbers for how much they were going to be, they started walking out of the room. It's like, I don't want to pay for any of this stuff. And they were frustrated and they were angry. They were you, except they were the folks from Ward 2 and Ward 4 and Ward 5. So I'm seeing, in fact, I'm standing here wondering, did I show up at a West Salem Neighborhood Association meeting tonight? But my neighborhood association would be standing here saying, we're not paying for this bridge. The fact that you folks have to spend a few more minutes in traffic, well, I'll tell you, we have traffic like from Hawthorne to Park, from Hawthorne and Sunnyview down to Market Street, where you have to go through 2 or 3 signals in order to even get to the intersection. Salem's growing. Yes, Salem is growing, and all the realtors are happy, and all the builders are happy. But the reality is all of that also brings more people and more traffic everywhere. And it's not just the bridge.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Thank you. Okay, Bob Courtwright. Then Mateo Barreo. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilors, my name is Bob Courtwright. I live in Ward 8. You have 10 years of study that give you the facts that you need to make a decision about the bridge. Let me give you 3 quick points to think about. First is the bridge, this SRC, is unaffordable. The bridge is much like a Street of Dreams home. It's fun to visit and dream about, but it's well beyond our middle class means. Here's the math that you got in the staff report a couple of weeks ago. At an estimated cost of $425 million, the third bridge would cost as much as our region is expected to have for all roadway expansion from all sources for the next 20 years. In short, the advertised price of this bridge exceeds our budget. But a careful review of the bridge studies in your staff report shows that the advertised price is way too low because it doesn't account for inflation in construction costs between now and the time to build it, replacing the Rosemont exit, building an earthquake-resistant bridge, or filling a gravel pit lake that's in the path of the bridge. Accounting for these costs would easily raise the cost to $500 to $700 million. So a big new source is money, but as you've heard, there isn't an approved funding plan for this project and little support for the financing that would be needed, which would be a combination of gas taxes, vehicle registration fees, property taxes, and a toll on all bridge crossings. Those fees and tolls add up to about $1,200 for a typical West Salem family, something people really aren't talking about. My second point is that not only is the bridge unaffordable, but there's a cruel irony, and that is it won't do the thing that most people are looking for. It won't reduce traffic congestion. The studies show that regional traffic congestion, whether we build the bridge or not, will roughly triple over the next 20 years. You won't be able to tell the difference. As you've heard from others, all that the bridge would really do is move congestion around. It would shift the bottleneck from the bridge to northeast Salem. But the third point I wanted to make, and I think you've heard it several times from speakers tonight, is the suggestion that all they want you to do is move the process forward. Well, the decision that you're being asked to make is not simply moving the process forward. It's deciding whether or not the SRC becomes part of Salem's comprehensive plan. It's a commitment by you to the rest of the region to build a large regional bridge. It isn't a decision to decide later what that bridge would look like. So it commits Salem to a big regional bridge. In sum, 10 years of study shows that the proposed SRC is a bad deal for Salem. Approving it would commit us to a solution that we can't afford, that would do little, if anything, to reduce traffic congestion. The council should instead opt for a no build and move forward with other affordable,
Thank you, Bob.
effective solutions.
Mateo? Jim?
Yeah, excuse me, one question. I'm sorry to take up the time, but it's important to me. I spent a little bit of time this past weekend reviewing the Luba decision that you're familiar with.
Yes.
And it's hard to follow. It intertwines. There's subsections. But the best I could tell, there was about 11 or 12 issues that the appellants brought up. The majority of those were denied. 2 were remanded, one of which, Luba, gave the answer in the remand. My question is, I'm curious, with that type of result, why didn't you seek judicial review?
We expect to talk to the city of Salem about what the decision for the city of Salem ought to be. I think there are strong reasons for not proceeding with this bridge, as I've outlined.
Yeah, I don't think that answers my question, Bob. You were handed, in my opinion, a defeat in the Luba appeal. 2 things were remanded out of 11. And you could have sought judicial review if you really felt as though your points were right. Why did you stop with Luba? Why didn't you move forward to prove?
Well, we're happy to have this back before the Salem City Council to talk about what the decision ought to be.
Okay, thank you very much. Mateo? Okay. George Benson? Am I reading you wrong? Gene. Gene, I'm sorry, Gene. I'm getting old and blind.
Excuse me, my name is Gene Benson. I live in Kaiser, 3390 Willamette Drive. Our family has had a business in Salem on North Commercial since 1961. We have seen the traffic out there just absolutely get stagnant. We have a train that crosses the tracks, or a train track that crosses Commercial Street. We also have the bridge. You never really know which one of them that it is where the problem is coming from. But combination of both of them, it makes it terrible. I'm 63 years old. I went to Highland Grade School here in Salem. When I was going to Highland Grade School in the early 60s, my dad was going to meetings about building a bridge at the end of Pine Street. He ain't got it done yet. If you'd have added up all those years, what you could have done is you could have built 2 new bridges. And that's what Salem needs. They need one at the north end of town. They need one at the south end of town. Okay? You need to have a vision, and that's what the city council is for, is to be a vision and guide things. Back when they built Beltline Road in Eugene, that was a vision, and it looked like the craziest thing that anybody had ever built because it was way out in the country and it went nowhere. Now look at it. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened to that town. You guys have missed the boat here by not planning enough and making it so that when you do have the bridge that goes across at the end of Pine Street or at the end of the Parkway, wherever it is, that you didn't just take that thing and go right on up over the hill, bring it in out by Oak Knoll Golf Course someplace, and make a loop that gets rid of the traffic in town. The problem that you're going to have is, like a lot of these people are saying, you're going to dump all this stuff right back into the congested area that is downtown on the West Salem side anyway. Okay? It's going to be nice because it's going to get, you know, another bridge to funnel traffic over into there, but it's not going to fix all the problems. Be visionaries and make something happen, but make it a good plan.
Okay, thank you very much. TJ Sullivan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. I'm TJ Sullivan. I reside in Ward 4. When I first came onto the City Council, I got to participate in a number of settlements of lawsuits brought against the city based on decisions by a former City Council. And it was amazing as we went through and we settled hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we had to give away. It was amazing that in all of these scenarios, the City Council had decided not to listen to staff and had decided to make decisions that ended up coming back to cost the city. And it feels to me sort of like deja vu all over again. The process was started by former city councils, councils that had broad diversity of political thought behind them. But we could see that there was a coming storm. And we wanted to get out in front of that storm, and we wanted to address it from a livability standpoint. And so we started this bridge process of moving it forward. And you have a lot of residents from all over Salem. I'm struck by the number of people who have showed up to testify tonight. You have old, young, you have people from South Salem, North Salem. Yeah, there are a lot of people from West Salem. And they should be concerned. And those of us that live in Ward 4 should be concerned about our friends and neighbors that are in West Salem. It's mind-numbing to me to listen to somebody say, we're going to double the number of cars on the road and still have one pinch point, and it's not going to be solved by adding another arterial to get cars and to move traffic. That should hurt your head. There have been lots of different folks along the way who are transportation experts who have said this is the right plan, this is the right place, this is the right way to do it. When I look at this council, there are not transportation experts here, but you have heard from a lot of them who have said this is the right plan. And when it comes to funding sources, it reminds me of the caveman lawyer from Saturday Night Live. People cannot conceive of the fact that there could be regional, state, and federal funding for a bridge. It's mind-numbing to me that people would sit there and say, gosh, we can't conceive. There's going to have to be these ridiculous tolls. People are building homes in Dallas and Independence because they can afford to live there. Those are lower income folks who can afford to buy those houses in Dallas. Where do you think they're working? They're working in Salem. And so when you start talking about extending it, you really are talking about hitting folks who are at the lower end of the pay scale by not adding another bridge. And it's time to continue this process forward and to listen to the citizens of this town and to give them a voice. To not do this, to not move forward with giving us a chance to have a vote on this is giving the middle finger as a city council back to the residents of this town, back to the residents of this area. And that's not what a city council should do. You guys are better than that.
Thank
and you
you,
were elected
TJ.
to be better than that.
Thank you, TJ. Mike Erdman?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike Erdman. I represent the 700 members of the Home Builders Association of Marion and Polk Counties. And it's been mentioned earlier, but of course, you're required by state law to have a 20-year supply of buildable land inside the urban growth boundary. And we know most of the land that we have remaining is in West Salem. And it'd be great if we could solve this problem by moving it. You could take land out of UGB West and maybe move it east or somewhere else, but you don't have that luxury. West Salem is going to have significant population growth, as is Dallas and Monmouth and surrounding communities. Excuse me. We've got a responsibility to plan properly for that future growth. Without the bridge, really what the city is doing is effectively burying its head in the sand and ignoring the reality of what's to come, because it is reality. Ask yourself, do you really think that you can solve this problem, excuse me, by having people embrace transit and carpooling and alternative means of getting around in ways and levels that have never been achieved before anywhere in this country? Because, folks, that's the only way you can do this. You'd have to have unprecedented levels that have never been seen to avoid the need for the bridge. It's not going to happen. We know that. You should be promoting transit and other ways of getting around. But, folks, excuse me, I got a cough tonight. We need to be planning responsibly and realistically for what's to come. There's no question about it. And I just want to touch on the funding, and it's TJ and others have touched on it. But folks, a lot of questions were raised by you at the work session a couple weeks ago. And there were good questions about the cost and a lot of concerns. And I'm not trying to demean those at all because they're very good questions. This bridge is expensive. It's crazy expensive. We all know that. But folks, that's the decision that should be made by the voters. Do they think that the benefits outweigh the costs? And so I would urge you to advance this process and keep it moving along, because the voters are the ones that deserve to decide, are they willing to pay for it? And they may not. We may get to the point of the voters saying, you know what, I'm not willing to spend that money. But that should be the voters' decision. Do they think the benefits outweigh the costs? Advance the bridge, take the funding process to the voters, let them make the decision. Thank you.
Okay, that's everyone who has signed up. Okay? Anyone got a burning desire to add to the information? Come on up. Just give your name and ward if you would. No, right up there. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm in Ward 8 because I'm in West Salem, and my name is Michelle Adami, and I am small business owner here in West Salem as well as Kaiser and McMinnville. And this directly affects me. I own a printing company called Copycats, and what happens is I hear every single day that people don't want to come to my business because they don't want to cross the bridge. I have employees that live all over Salem, some of which do take public transportation and are late for work because they can't get over the bridge. I have paper trucks and all kinds of things that I have jobs that have due dates, very much like a restaurant where you have one chance to get it right. And when somebody needs their documents for a meeting like this, you have to have them on time. If the trucks can't get to me, the paper can't get to me, and my employees can't get to me, it majorly affects my business. The traffic has gotten so bad on Wallace Road that people have figured out to take the next exit, which is the Rosemont exit. And now Rosemont is starting to back up onto Highway 22, which if people aren't paying attention and they're speeding up because they think they've got past Wallace Road, there's been a couple of times that I've almost been rear-ended just trying to get off on the Rosemont exit. So there's not a whole lot of options for where to get off on there or how to relieve the congestion. Again, I haven't done a ton of the studies. I have watched some of the meetings, but I think it's critically important for us to really think about another bridge, whether it's this one or that area. We just truly need it for safety, because there is no place, if there is a major trauma in West Salem, where people can get medical attention in the event of an earthquake like this without going a long distance. So please consider this, and I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Rich?
Yeah, my name is Rich Fry. I live in Ward 4, formerly on the Planning Commission. So I did a little tally tonight. Is that people got up and testified? And there were 59 people, there's 60, including the woman that didn't testify, to 9. That's 60 to 9 tonight of people testifying that were in favor of moving this process forward. Mr. Lewis's motion does not do anything more than get the answers to the LUBA appeal and bring them back to this body. That's where you get to make the decision. To make that decision tonight, seeing what you see from the public, is utterly irresponsible on your part. Being on the Planning Commission for 8 years, I've heard nothing but the problems with traffic and the congestion. And people say, oh, if you come across the bridge, everybody's going to dump onto Wallace Road and we're going to have the same issue. What about all the people that go across the bridge and go north to McMinnville or to Newburgh or somewhere else? Those people are not going to add to that congestion. They're going to go the other way. And I think that for you tonight, as a body of people, 6 people in this community, to make a decision for the entire community is totally irresponsible. And you need to move this forward, get the answers back to LUBA, and let the voters decide what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Melody Winger. I've been in West Salem for about 10 years now. I had no intentions of coming to speak, but I strongly supported moving forward with this for a long time. I come from California. I come from Los Angeles traffic. I get Seattle traffic is nothing near the same, but that does not mean we don't have our own issues here. When I worked in downtown Salem, I lived just behind the Safeway off of Edgewater there. I had to leave earlier to get to downtown for my job down there than I do now to get from West Salem to Woodburn. I can get there in the same amount of time. I just can't tell you how much time I've lost sitting on the Salem Parkway, coming up at, again, 45 minutes when there's an accident to go how many miles? All I ask is what everyone else has said and just moving forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hey guys, excuse me. My name is Eddie Zapian. I live in Brad Nanke's ward on Battle Creek Drive Road. I just wanted to say really quick, you guys have heard all the testimonies, all the stats. Everybody's heard enough to sleep well tonight. But I really just want to speak on a personal level. I see everybody here. I know we've all got families. Somebody talked about schools earlier. The projections that we've been seeing, even from 2012, the PSC study, for example, in my neighborhood, my kids were going to Pringle Elementary. The numbers that we're seeing now were not even projected until years from now. And we surpassed those numbers in September. The numbers are so big that we've actually decided as a family to pull our children from a brick and mortar school so that our children can kind of get the one-on-one time that they need. I'm a realtor in town, and yes, you're right. I love the people that come to this town. I greet people from all over the state, from out of state, and I bring them to Salem, Kaiser, Portland, all over the Willamette Valley. And the one thing that they complain about, Californians, Washingtonians, Idahoans, the common complaint is, what's going to happen with this bridge? And it's always the same thing. I don't know. I wish that we could move forward, and I would just beg and ask the council to please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, Mayor Bennett, members of the Salem City Council. My name is Jason Brandt. I live at 1489 Coho Court Northwest here in Salem. So it's been a fun time here, nostalgic for me. I've spent a number of nights here in the council chambers in my old position when I worked for the Chamber of Commerce. I had the opportunity to travel all around the state and have a chance to see that congestion firsthand in my current position. But what I wanted to share with you tonight is just the simple fact that without question, whether you're on the west side or the east side of the river, the majority of the people in this community know that we need more infrastructure across that bridge, without question. I think the polling shows that, and I want you to trust the sound process that has taken place here for the last 13 years. I started working for the Chamber of Commerce in 2004 and left in 2015. Some faces are familiar, some are new, but it's great to see how many people here are getting engaged in making a difference in your community. But I would like to leave you with this one thought just as we conclude tonight, and that's the fact that you can trust the process that was undertaken before your time. You truly can. To those on both sides of this issue, there's been so many meetings, so many workshops, so many opportunities for the public to engage and make sure their voice was heard. And hats off to your Public Works Department, first and foremost. Julie and Peter and Robert, the people that work on your team in Public Works are tremendous. And you can trust what they're bringing to the table and the continuity that they're providing you when you're making decisions. I think you're here whenever this comes up, pro and con debates about the bridge, but I hope you have an opportunity to focus on the simple process that's in front of you tonight, which is answering those 3 LUBA questions. So please trust the process, trust the continuity, and trust those that have served before you and your very capable and professional staff that work here at the City of Salem. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. Councilor Lewis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign and send a letter to the Federal Highway Administration and Oregon Department of Transportation stating that council will address all remaining city actions necessary to complete the final environmental impact statement for the Salem River Crossing Project preferred alternative.
Second by Nanki. Discussion? Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I mean, I had things prepared. I think we've heard a lot tonight. This has been a process that's been going on for over 50 years. And if what I read is correct, this is the 4th time that the east landing has been around Pine Street. There must be a logical reason for that. And for me, it is logical. With its distance from the heart of downtown, its connection to the highway, clearly make it a logical site on the east side. The issue of funding, we seem to go around and around and around. There's no money, there's this money. Remember that when the so-called work plan was established, the state had not passed the $5.2 billion transportation package. Is there going to be money potentially in that? And oh, by the way, that goes for 10 years. There is no sunset. So it'll be done another 10 years. Is it possible if there's funding? We have comments from Representative Paul Evans' office that says, if the city will finish its job, and I want it to, I'll help find funding from the state of Oregon. In the last year at their meetings with their constituents, both Senator Ron Wyden and Senator Merkley said, if you can get the community in back of it, we'll help you get money. Same thing was said by Representative Schrader. Is there potential funding for this bridge? You bet your belly button there is. Can we go after it today? No, we cannot. And I'm not going to defend this, but we can't even talk to the federal government or the state about money for building the bridge until we get the permission to do it, the record of decision. So I encourage us to move forward on that. In fact, I'm going to end by saying, as the representative of Ward 8, I'm begging this council to approve this motion.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It truly is an historic day today. In a few minutes, we'll be voting on an issue that Salem and our surrounding communities have been working towards for generations. And that a significant majority of not only Salem voters, but those in our neighboring communities support as well. Many people are obsessed with state and federal government and what's happening in politics all about that field, and totally ignore what's happening at the local government level. I've always said local government closest to people, has more impact on your daily lives than the others ever could. Today, I fear that reality will be realized by a great many people in the Salem area and throughout the state as well. We're a democratic republic. As councilors, we represent not only the residents and interests of our wards, we are also tasked with representing Salem as a whole. Many times we're unsure as to the will of those we represent and make decisions based on our best assumptions. That is not the case here today. We have sound scientific evidence of the will of those we represent, and I would implore my fellow councilors to heed that evidence and vote to move forward with the Salem River Crossing Project, beginning with addressing the items that have been placed before us in the remand by LUBA.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Let's get those ayes up. Okay, all opposed? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that we send a letter to the Federal Highway Administration and the Oregon Department of Transportation indicating that we have made the decision to take no further action to complete the final environmental impact statement for the Salem River Crossing Project.
Second by Ossick. Any discussion?
Thanks. Yeah, I would like to have a discussion, and I'm sorry the people are leaving because I'd like them to hear what I'm going to have to say.
Just a minute, just a minute. Just a minute.
So I agree, we should trust the process. And this entire thing has been a land use process of many years. And the result is looking at the potential environmental impact statement and what happens. So that has actually happened here, and we've done that. Now, I also want to say that the idea that we have spent all this money, so we might as well keep going on it, that's something called sunk costs, and there's something called the sunk cost fallacy that we should all be aware of, which means that the amount of money you spend in it is not a reason, this is city planning wide, to spend more money on something. The next one is, well, we need to get answers back to LUBA. To me, that's just avoiding the situation because the answers to LUBA are going to be, do we want to expand the urban growth boundary? Do we want to amend the TSP plan? Do we want to find that the roadways and going next to Wallace Park have a de minimis effect or more than a de minimis effect? And my guess is, based on the way the vote went tonight, those things would not happen with the city council. So I also do want to say that we should trust the staff. We haven't had a work session in this for the four and a half years that I've been on the council, and we finally had one, and we got the information we needed to know from them, and the facts and the science that I obtained from that report is that the current bridge, as cited, will be ineffective, uneconomical, and environmentally unsound. So let's look at ineffective. The whole purpose of this long planning process was to alleviate congestion on the Center and Marion Street bridges and the connecting highways and arterial street system. It will not do this. We are not going to meet the goal of the entire process with this bridge. Bridge traffic studies show that the regional traffic congestion, no matter what we do, are going to increase 3 times over the next 20 years, whether the bridge is built or not. The ODOT studies show that if there is a no build out in 2040, we will have 16 of 32 congested intersections. The same studies show that if there is a build in 2040, we will have 17 of 33 congested intersections. So we're not alleviating the goal of alleviating congestion on the connecting highway and arterial street system. All it does is move around the congested areas. So how does this help the city as a whole? Yes, I have a responsibility to my ward, but I also have a responsibility to the city as a whole. And if the stated purpose of this project cannot be met, where's the benefit? Uneconomical and unaffordable. I was at the work session. I've listened to what the the work session way back in, I don't know, like 2.5 years ago when we looked at funding. I've also listened to what the people said, and I've read the reports. There will be minor federal or state money under the proposed funding plan. Sure, there's maybe some pie in the sky way we can get some, but that's not the way the plan has been formulated. There's only 4 ways to pay, and this is what we discussed at the last staff meeting, not the staff meeting, the work session. Gas tax, property tax, vehicle registration fees, tolls each way, or some combination of thereof. And the model that we looked at shows the tolls could be between $1 and $4 each way. And the staff indicated that if the new bridge is to be tolled, the other 2 bridges will have to be tolled as well. So we live in a society where people will drive across town to save 2 cents on 30 gallons of gas, which is 60 cents. They'll spend more money driving across town to save the 2 cents. So unless we toll the 2 bridges downtown, people are not going to go to that bridge and pay the toll when they can come right downtown and not pay the toll. I would also contend that the staff study showed that the cost of $425 million is undoubtedly too low, takes up almost all the regional transportation projected monies, and gives us lost opportunity cost for any other project. Environmentally unsound. Let's look at the effects of displacements of homes and businesses on both ends of the bridgeheads, especially lower income homes, especially on the diverse eastern end of the bridge. Greenhouse gas. The contention has been, well, all this idling is going to increase greenhouse gas. Well, the ODOT studies and traffic projection shows that building the proposed bridge will result in a 16.1 increase in energy consumption by cars and trucks by the year 2040, 16% more than the no-build alternative. So idling is not the issue. Building the preferred alternative would mean more cars and trucks on the road, more annual vehicle miles traveled, more energy consumption, and more greenhouse gas emissions. It's environmentally unsound for its effect not only on the homes at either end of the bridge, homes of businesses, but also on Wallace Marine Park and south of Edgewater. There's a real question as to whether the new bridge will be seismically sound or not. I think the testimony and the evidence is that it will not be, so it won't take care of the Cascadia problems. And we do know the state has already allocated $60 million to seismically retrofit the Center Street Bridge. Whether that's the first project or the last project done, it will be done before any new bridge could ever be built. Yes, there are safety and health issues. On the page, the report pages 86 to 89 address those issues. Emergency facilities are already located on the west side. The Union Street Railroad Bridge is built for fire and ambulances. We have opened Fire Station 11 on the west side of the river. The fire department itself says that they haven't had any unreasonable delays in responding to fires. There are certainly other ways to affect the congestion in downtown Salem, and we have completed a congestion task force that has indicated 17 things that can be done to alleviate the congestion on either side of the bridge, and council and staff will be advancing that. I know and understand that the people are frustrated at the traffic congestion, and many believe that a new bridge will solve those problems. Well, the facts in the staff report and the ODOT reports definitely show that they will not. The frustrations are still going to be there, and I would suspect it might even be more frustrating because we will have spent $425 million for no result. So who's going to benefit from a new bridge if it will not solve any of the problems and concerns that citizens have expressed, but will cost instead fantastically huge amounts of money? So the people of Salem who are frustrated, understandably so, by delays going back and forth across the bridge, they're not going to benefit because traffic congestion is going to be 3 times the amount. The congestion is still going to be there, just moved from one side to the other and one area to the other. So who does stand to benefit by expanding the urban growth boundary in West Salem? who's spending a ton of money on websites, robocalls, and other efforts to push the bridge? So what is the purpose of the bridge if the new bridge will not actually solve the purpose and goal of relieving congestion on either sides of the river? No doubt there may be, and there probably will be, a need for another bridge over the Willamette to solve the regional problems, but not this bridge, not here, not now.
Councilor Nanki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and pushing this off is going to take the cost of that bridge up to $1 billion or more by the time the process could be started over for a new location. That being said, from the potential financial table that we looked at, and COG had mentioned it last at the work session as well, we could potentially not have any tolls on any bridges, and we would still be able to fund the new bridge. I actually had voted for the original recommendation, which was the full flyover to where nobody had to stop in Salem that didn't want to be here. And it was the same people who voted against this proposal tonight who forced us to pull that down to ground level to essentially reduce the amount of congestion freedom that we would have gotten with the preferred alternative as it moved to us for a decision. I'm a lack of words for this evening. Hopefully this wakes the city up, and because it shakes me to the core, and I'm sure it will do that to a lot of people for many generations as well.
Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you. It's unfortunate that some people left, and I'm kind of discouraged by the behavior also that I witnessed after that, because I like to think of ourselves as being civil and being able to engage in discourse without the emotionality that I witnessed tonight. So I do have some comments, and I've made this position very, very clear over the years I've been involved in this issue, is that I do want a bridge. This isn't the right one. In 2008, I moved back to Salem. I became active in the Grant Neighborhood Association, and just in a few months, I became aware of this project. And I've been following it for 10 years. I actually found a video of myself on YouTube giving testimony in 2013 about this before I was on the city council. I followed the twist and turns of this project. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of misinformation given during this process. And I think a lot of misunderstanding about how complex this process is. One of the misunderstandings is that the vote tonight is simply to either continue the process or to get all the information so the public can vote. I wish it was that simple. I feel for those who are frustrated. I really do. I'm frustrated too with the issue because it has been this overly simplified, yes, do you want this, or no, do you not, when that is just really not the case. And I want to go back to the Salem River Crossing Task Force of 2012, because I think that's really when the issue was decided. And that task force was composed of around 22 people. 10 of those were neighborhood associations and citizen members. And those neighborhood associations and citizen members voted for a no-build alternative. The rest of the people on the task force voted for some type of build alternative. The rest of those members were the transit business or transportation business community. They were also members of ODOT, the city of Salem, also the Mid-Willamette Valley COG. And what happened was that the task force, when the task force finished and that vote came out being 10 members saying do not do this out of 22, that was the canary in the coal mine for this project. And it should have been heeded by the project sponsors. What should have happened 7 years ago is that the project sponsors should have taken notice that this project has serious stakeholder imbalances. When you had a majority of community members saying, no, this project isn't right for our neighborhoods, it's not right for our community, and you have the industry, the business communities, the public staff saying, yes, it is. The task force vote in 2012 should have been a wake-up call to the project sponsors that the project was on the wrong track and that an intervention was necessary. But that didn't happen. No one heeded that warning, and instead we kind of plowed ahead with this project. It appears that the project sponsors perhaps didn't have the courage to say, wait a minute, something isn't right here, because we do have an imbalance. And there was no effort to investigate that. And all of that time, from 2012 up to 2016 City Council, for 4 years, the project sponsors continued to reassure the public that this project was moving forward. And I really believe they gave kind of this false hope to those who are frustrated with our infrastructure. I don't think that groups like the Salem Bridge Solutions I don't think that they are wrong in what they're doing. I think it was a complete reaction because they had been told for years that the project was on track, that it had support. They thought that this was just continuing the process and all of those things. And it wasn't until recently, within the last, couple of years, I believe, when you formed, that you realize that, whoa, we have some elected officials now that are against this, and why?
That betrayed us.
And I think I think part of that was because they didn't follow the project and were just reassured by the project sponsors that it was going to happen. So for 4 years during this time, the neighborhood associations and the community activists pushed back, and for 4 years the project sponsors just continued on. No other alternatives were explored. There were no task force convened to study the other options for dealing with congestion around the bridges. There were no motions to ODOT to seismically retrofit our existing bridges. None of that was even explored, other options for helping, until the Council of 2017 was convened. And all of those eggs were put in one basket on this false hope that subsequent councils would just go along with the plan that had significant community opposition. At the work session on January 30th, I tried to find compromise with this project. I tried to find that flexibility in the project. The unfortunate truth, though, is that there are no options for flexibility or compromise right now. The decision for where this bridge would be located, its path, and its impacts was made several years ago by a majority of people who are no longer involved in this process. That decision was made years ago. And then previous councils took their time to take action. It wasn't until the election of 3 people who ran against the bridge because of their constituents telling them they didn't want this project, that one of the cornerstones of their campaigns, that the council reacted in 2016 and passed hasty land use actions at the 11th hour that were then later remanded by LUBA. I don't pretend to know why these previous councils waited years to take action, but the notion that future councils would just follow along with the decisions of previous councils was extremely presumptuous. And now several years later, we are given a binary-only choice. One choice is to vote to build exactly what was passed several years ago with no option to change anything about it. No option for public input about where it's located. No option to only build part of it. This is what it is, and it has to only be that. Or the other choice is to not build it at all and to move on and find other solutions. And I was elected by my constituents in Ward 1, and Salem councilors are elected by ward. And the reason why is so that not one area of the city can control the membership of council. Tonight we had 72 people testify. And I know Rich Fry talked about the breakdown in terms of the I want the bridge versus I don't want the bridge. And he was right. It was 9 didn't want the bridge, and then 4 was I wasn't able to really determine their position, and then the rest were all for it. But when you look at where they're from, the geography, Ward 8 had 29 people say yes. Ward 7 had 4. Ward 6 had 1. Ward 5 had 2. Ward 4 had 3. Ward 3 had 4. Ward 2 had 1. And Ward 1 had 2. And then outside of the city of Salem, there were 13 people. You can see that Ward 8 is overly represented here tonight. And it doesn't diminish the need, it doesn't diminish the feelings of the issues that we have with our transportation. It doesn't diminish all of those things that people experience. But I think what it does show is that the people who are living on the west side of the river will need to work with the people living on the east side of the river to really find a solution that's going to work for everyone. That's something that should have happened years ago, and it didn't happen, and that's very unfortunate. This isn't the only time this bridge proposal has failed. The first time it failed was 45 years ago in 1974. It was slated to go in the same place. There was significant community opposition, and there is again in 2019. And as a student of history, the saga, it really does burden my heart because it seems we haven't learned our lessons. Public projects undertaken that have significant impacts to our community will only survive if they have the support of the entire community. No one wants to see a public project fail. But even though the warning signs were there, even though the canary was lawn dead, the project sponsors continued digging deeper and deeper.
Councilor Lewis.
Yeah, lots of words. I'm sure everybody has different opinions. And yes, this is an issue that is much more sensitive to West Salem and those that live west of the city of Salem. There's no doubt in that. I do want to point out one fallacy of the comments made by Councilor Anderson, and I in no way think that this is the only one. The purpose of the Salem River Crossing was to do two things. One, increase mobility. Give us another option. Two, decrease the congestion on the Center and Marion Street Bridge and the streets and highways that are around there. Under the no-build alternative, in the year 2040, nine intersections near and at the bridgeheads that we currently have, 9 will be not to meet standards. Under the preferred alternative, 0. So I want to thank Councilor Anderson for bringing this up at the work session. It clearly shows, the staff report clearly shows that what the purpose was would have been met. We wouldn't have really recognized the value for years to come until the bridge is done, but we are going to recognize starting tomorrow the negative ramifications of what this vote has done to the city.
Okay. Just one comment. I will have to disagree with a lot of what I heard in terms of the history of what happened here. As one of the people who worked on the Salem alternative, trying to deal with the issue, I certainly think some of the description of what went on and the canary in the coal mine are both, I think, interesting metaphors. I don't think they fully reflect. I guess I've got to kind of point to myself as the only one of you elected citywide in 2 elections consistently for this bridge with totals that beat all of yours put together. I'm not too fearful of the fact that there is a constituency for the bridge. I think that's important to recognize, and that it is citywide. There also, I think, were other reasons for the bridge. I think the resiliency issue continues to be one that you can walk away from. But when the bridge falls, you can't walk across it. And I think you're going to be in deep, deep trouble. I think this evening the comparison to what occurred in Minnesota was very apt. I really do. And I really am concerned about it. And I hope that as we move forward, you'll join me in putting together a resiliency task force to deal with the problem you're creating tonight, because it's part of what's going to be what confronts us if things go wrong. I'm really concerned about it. And then, I don't know, I listened to all the factoids, and I've heard them all before over the past 13 years, and I guess you can make it up. You can make it say whatever you want. What you can't make is a difference by stopping this project. And you can't solve the problems this community is going to face over the next 20 years. There was another one. Actually, I thought the fellow mentioning we need one at the north and the south is probably describing most appropriately what we need. The problem with the I'm for a bridge, just not this one, there is no other bridge but this one that'll be on the table for the next 20 to 30 years. And I watched Mission Street fail for all the right reasons. Probably it would have taken out Deepwood, would have wrecked Bush House, and was going to cause the hospital problems, and the list went on and on. So Mission came off the list. So there's a long and really colorful history of this city trying to build another bridge. We all will be in one chapter. There will be people who will talk about this council in both positive and negative ways for what's happened here, and we all know that. And I'm just sorry we were unable to find common ground on this. I think it's there. I happen to agree with the idea that this really is part of a process The end of the process is really allowing the public to vote. I understand why you guys don't want the public to vote. When you look at the numbers out there, I think they would vote to build a bridge. But I just think the reaction is not a good one. I don't think it will build confidence in this council to have made this decision. But again, we'll chug on forward. We'll continue to work together. I just think this will be one of those that historically will be seen as a failure. Councilor Kaiser.
I'd like to, I guess, add on that I want to try to find the right bridge. I really do. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are extremely cynical, and they'll say that I'm lying, or I'm an evil person, or I don't care, or whatever. Yeah. And that is just really not the truth. And I want to find the right thing to do, and I want to start that process tomorrow, Councilor Lewis. Let's do that. Let's go back to where we could have been 7 years ago and do the right thing and pick the right one and and so that we could have like unanimous support across this thing. I do want to make a friendly amendment to the motion, and that is to also include that city staff research the feasibility of acquiring and putting in place equipment that would facilitate a temporary emergency crossing of the Willamette River in Salem.
Wait, that's a separate issue. I'm sorry, I don't think that'll amend the motion correctly. I hear what you're saying. I think that, why don't we do that?
However that might work.
Let me try this on you. Why don't we save I think that's a really good concept. Why don't we save that concept for the resiliency issue and pull it all together into a package? I understand why you want to do it tonight, but I think that you haven't filed it. We haven't had a chance to look at it. Let's take a little time and do this right. This is really about moving that lever
I'd be happy
forward.
to bring it back to council. I guess I wanted to make it known that at least for me, and I can only speak for myself, this is not the end, even though people might feel like it is. We have the Congestion Relief Task Force recommendations that we can implement. We can look at how we can actually get across our river in a time of emergency and do that quickly. And we can also look at what would it take to actually create a crossing for Salem. And where would that be in all, this is not the end. It's not like we'll never do any of these projects ever again.
No.
So
I think everybody knew that in 1974 too. The end is never in sight on a river crossing here because we need one, and I think you make a very good point. Eventually somebody will find it. I can assure you, as a 70-year-old, I won't be alive for that one, but I think that you are young enough that you may have the opportunity again, and I wish you luck. I hope you don't feel the frustration I do 13 to 20 years from now, and I hope you can find the people that replace Mr. Chickering and Mr. Cole who will help fund the wildly expensive process it takes to get the environmental impact statement through, because it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough sell to all of our regional neighbors as well as ODOT and the feds, I think. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted, I don't think I could express it any better than Councilor Kaiser did, but I want to just say that I hear everybody's frustration. I am very frustrated as well. This was a frustrating process for me. I brought it out at the work session where we had this binary choice of yes or no. I don't like that choice because the yes answer for me was just not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable to destroy 108 homes and businesses. It just wasn't. And I'm sad that I had to vote no, but I did because I think it was the right thing to do. And I look forward to coming up with some better solutions. We have the Congestion Relief Task Force solutions that we've looked at. I believe we need to be moving forward with implementing them. We also need to be looking at another bridge, just not this bridge. And so that's all I have.
Councilor Lewis.
I'm sorry. I can't take a lot of consolation that there's now rhetoric on the council floor. Let's start moving towards building a bridge. By the time that's going to be accomplished, I'm going to be 95 years old. I hope I'm here to see that one fail too.
Okay, are we done lamenting or extolling tonight's decision? Okay. Do we have anything left to do? Need to vote on whose motion is it now? What you, remind me what, oh, the second letter. Okay, I got it, sorry. That's right. You realize I'm the one that has to sign this nonsense, okay? Okay, everybody in favor of that say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. Noes? Get your hands up. Okay. Okay.
We're not done.
No, we still got a bunch of stuff.
And we've
No,
got
just
to
one
go
more.
to 3.3C.
That's it.
Boy, I need, Chris, I need a motion.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh my gosh, is he okay?
My grandkids, I will never see a bridge across here. She's 21, been in Salem for 60 years. Well, might be some new people on the thing too. I see that. I call her, thanks again. Yeah. I'm gonna recess for a couple of minutes. Okay. I'm counting on you.
Thank you.
We're on 5.
I got it.
Okay.
Ready?
We need a motion. We're moving on to
Yes.
special orders of business. Counselor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the committee recommendations for item 3.3C with the following exceptions. Refer HB 2001 and HB 2306 back to the Legislative Committee for additional consideration.
Second.
I'll second.
Well, okay, Tom will
Yeah,
second.
well, I'm just curious as to what those bills are.
One is the speaker's bill. 2001 was the speaker's bill that wanted to have including multifamily housing in single-family zoning. It was, I asked to have that sent back. I think we ought to take another look at that. We're working on it anyway. I wonder if there's, I think a more discussion.
Okay.
I think
Is
our
that the
position
one-
was to oppose it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's the right
Our
choice.
concerns were, when we expressed them at the committee meeting, were partly based on the CCRs and those sort of things.
CCRs and local control.
Okay.
And I think we need to take another look.
Okay.
The other one,
Actually, I just had two comments regarding SB 560 relating to photo radar, that I'm in opposition to that and don't support the support.
we had already marked you.
Yeah, I knew you probably did, since I don't believe in electronic
I know you
government. And then relating to water quality on SB 612 and the three basin rule, and that's where I met the mayor the first time,
That's
25
right.
years ago, lobbying in that respect. I'd like to take a neutral stance on that for now, not knowing exactly how it reads.
Yeah,
And
we'll
knowing
take
that
it
I'm
up.
also the president of the North Salem Watershed Council,
Right.
where we strive for non-political
Yeah,
ends and supporting both the urban and rural communities and all the stakeholders involved in that. And so there's still a lot of things that there may be other options that we can look at.
I think we could take a look at it. I think there was very strong feeling the three basin rule is a fundamental protection for
Yes,
our water supply.
and we found that
You know
during our days
Yeah.
back then. But I'd like to actually understand the entire issue more and what options might be out there. And this could be, a stepping stone to trying to find
Different
a
solution.
third option. But that's just my personal neutral,
Okay.
rather than recommending that the council do that.
Okay. Counselor Cook, did you? Lewis. No, Lewis, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had requested to have this item pulled, and the reason for that was to request the city to try and get the information that comes out of the legislative committee out to the general city council in a little bit quicker manner. Unless I missed something, the committee met on January 25th. The report was dated February 1st, and I saw it for the first time February 7th.
Yeah.
I don't feel as though that gives me enough time to really look into these bills, and so I cannot support.
Can't vote?
Nope.
Okay. Well, we'll mention that to the manager and see if they can get it out quicker, but the other alternative, I'll just offer it to you, is you're welcome to come and join us at the legislative committee and hear what's going on them, if that, that's what you need.
Mr.
You
Mayor-
don't need another meeting.
No, I don't. Mr. Mayor, what was the second one that was pulled? Is that, I'm still a little unclear about.
0306.
Okay.
That's the three basin, right?
Oh, three basin, okay, I'm fine.
Okay.
No.
No.
No, hold on.
Okay.
Another residential one?
Yes.
When building permits.
It's the one, it's yours now.
Oh, that's right, okay. Can we, Mr. Manager, could we respond to Councilor Lewis's concern? Can we get those out quicker?
If the pace of the legislative session and legislative committee allows, certainly, it sounds like it would have on this occasion,
Yeah.
but as the legislature kicks up, it might be challenging, but we'll push out that report separate from waiting for the legislative, the city council agenda packet. We can certainly send it
Yeah.
out separately ahead of time.
And you're, yeah.
And just to
Counselor
clarify, House Bill 2306 requires city or county to issue residential building permits upon substantial completion of construction of public improvements in residential subdivisions.
I read that, are we referring that back to the legislative committee too? Okay, that's fine.
Is that okay? Okay. Okay, and we'll try, the manager mentioned, we'll try to get them out, but we will have taken positions. I've already testified on one bill. I did step back from testifying on 2001 because it made me uncomfortable. We were getting a little ahead of the curve there. Okay? Everybody okay? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Aye.
Aye. You're an aye?
No.
You're a no. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
We are adjourned.